I'm a Puerto Rican American from outside of Buffalo, a place called Orchard Park. I lived there while going to Arts Academy High School. I was a classical guitarist as a kid. Went to got a history degree from University of Buffalo. Moved to New York City. I've lived here for 18 years. I lived as a percussionist and a music producer and
Wow.
DJ.
So that's great. That's one thing that I really wanted to talk about today was percussion and coming up in that grind. And you see some drummers, and you can probably go anywhere in the world and you'll see some amazing drummers. But to be top notch is a whole nother thing. And what's that like?
Okay, so first of all, I know some top-notch guys, and I'm lucky to sit with them. I don't ever put myself in that category because like, there's a whole other level of language, and being raised in something is different from coming into it at the level that I am. I'm blessed to be able I know some of the language and I can hang, but I mean I've seen people whose great grandparents are percussionists, and they passed it on and passed it on and passed it on and passed it on. So
yeah,
I'm not at that level, brother. I never will be. That said, I was blessed to meet some people in the Buffalo area that turned me on to some amazing stuff, especially conga and djembe. And they led me to go to Puerto Rico and study. I learned about bomba, which is my mother's family's traditional music, and came back to Buffalo, worked as a djembe player for a long time. When I came to New York, I continued to study and learn djembe. I've been to Senegal to study, met a bunch of beautiful people, and I eventually was working at a place called Albanelli, which is a world famous dance company based here in New York City, and that's how I ate for years, was primarily djembe. And
yeah, and you see that in a cultural background too. I think if you think about that, because you can go anywhere in the world and they might not play drums the same way we do in like a rock band or whatever in like the Western world, but the talent is still just limitless, right? Like you just find guys that blow your mind, and they're not doing it on YouTube, they're sitting there peeling coconuts and destroying it. So I mean, I think that really is, it can be found in genetics too with music.
When I went to Senegal, the littlest kids were drumming circles around me. I am not ashamed to admit that. And there's something to be said for hearing something from the womb to watching somebody make it to making it yourself. And I'll give you an example. Like you mentioned rock music, I'll also include hip hop. We've heard rap beats and rock beats from the womb, right? Like, when we were in the womb, literally, and then when we came out, and so we do a boom boom ba cha 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 boom boom. That's just that's there's nothing that'll take that away from us. We would be knocked out and probably still hear a boom bap in our head, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
You know what I'm saying? So you can't wash that away from us. So for like, I'm an elementary school teacher. That's what I do for money. And a lot of what I do is teach hip hop. And I always laugh because, I can't. You mentioned earlier I live in the Bronx. I teach in Spanish Harlem. I can't teach these kids hip hop. They are hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Right. So what I can do though is give them tools to express themselves. Right? I can like show them like, if you use your fist and your knuckles, you can get a kick and a snare sound. You know what I mean? Like if they don't have lunch the way I used to have it when I was a kid. We used to back on the table like that. So the innate language, like you said, is within us, and that's a whole deeper subject. Like that drumming is a language and dance is a language that communicates with the drummer. And in a proper environment, there's dancing, drumming, and song. And I've been around the world a little bit something, man, and I've never seen those three things where they don't all exist together, except here.
Yeah. Wow.
Like at school, they'll teach you dance in this class, drum in that class, singing in that class, with no intention of ever putting them together. And I keep on, I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why when people like from Western civilization, they'll go to somewhere in the Caribbean or Africa or many places, even some places in Europe, and they'll see things and they're like, oh wow, this is like, because like we put together orchestras with the whole thing, musicals, movies, things like that. But they live like that. That's their culture, is being intertwined. We see something intertwined and our mind is blown because we're not used to that. And I think that's a conditioning thing, but it is human nature to be intertwined, right? Like even through quantum theory, we're all connected. So every beat, every sound must be connected in some way, right?
No argument there, especially when you mentioned the quantum level of it, where vibration is a factor, consciousness is a factor. These are the kind of things that we deal with when we're drumming. Things happening in the moment. I'm looking at a dancer and interpreting what she or he is doing in the moment. There's a type of telepathy happening. I don't have an explanation for that. You know what I'm saying? But we can talk math about it. And I can't explain the math very well, but I can explain the philosophy around it a little bit. And
right.
It's better to say there's not really language for that, other than
yeah, that's so true.
And that's why the culture the cultures have it. The old cultures have that, and there's an unbroken line of it. Like you said, like there's they still do it in Ireland, they still do it in Yukon, they still do it in South Africa. They still, here our culture is so new that when we see that, we're like, oh my God, that's amazing. How did they come up with that? And it's because it's been developing, since before people really could talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, back in the rocks and sticks and hitting the side of your animal level. And aspects of that still survive. Of course, I think it's still been changing, but I'm just a dude. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people are fighting to keep that to be a thing. Like I remember when I was a kid, my dad, but my dad wasn't always around me so much, so I didn't have a good upbringing and understanding of like Native American history and culture very well. Okay. And it was not that it was hard for me to access, but it just almost felt, being quarter Native, I didn't feel like it would ever really affect me that much growing up. And then when I was in a group that a woman called Gail Mike, who's a excellent Native woman, does a lot of great work around here. She ran the Arts After School music program. It was all free, and after school we got free food and we got to stay and eat and play instruments. And one year she put me a native drum, big drum. So when I had to make my own drum out of hide, I had to play, I had to hit notes I didn't know how to hit. So it was a really big experience for me, and it taught me a lot, not just about music, but about myself. And it also taught me about how beautiful Native American music is. Like when you hear it, a lot of people, like, especially, if they hear Native American music, they kind of think it all sounds the same, or it's also similar. Now, when you listen to it with someone who can speak Native American, they'll tell you what tribe is singing what song before you even, they don't need titles or nothing like that. It's a way of singing, and it's very different. It's very unique to one another. And it's something that I think you have to be there in person to feel. Once you feel it, you're like, wow, this is a very real thing. This is not what So, and that's another thing I was going to bring up too, was in the USA, we have a huge problem today. And I noticed that you posted the other day online about a situation that your wife encountered with, racism in the USA. And not to get too political on it, but just, where do you think that's ever going to go? How do you think that's going to end up? You think everyone just, I heard somebody a couple years back said, I hope everybody just ends up, mixed. And then there is no thing saying that, because eventually it's almost bound to happen. How can we, we're so nomadic, we're going to end up everywhere at one point. And yeah.
Well, I'd say, first of all, fuck racism. First of all. I was just talking about this today. I had a different post where I was it doesn't even matter what the post was, but somebody responded to it in a way that was like, this person's Puerto Rican and that person's not Puerto Rican. I was kind of like, So, and the reason why it stuck to me is that argument of a person is something versus isn't something, and an in-group is othering somebody, right? That is the nature of colonialism, genocide, and classism, all wrapped into one. The vestiges of slavery are all inside that. We are, this person was saying, we're from a nation, not a race, not a culture, not a language group, not a ancestral. I'm from a country that's approximately 500 years old, and I identify as this national group. Mm-hmm. I don't identify as any of my ancestors beyond 500 years. My history starts in the Western Hemisphere when one side of my ancestors is enslaved, the other side of my ancestors is almost completely wiped out, and the final side of my ancestors is the one doing the raping and killing it. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
And I'm watching this going like, wow, man, like you grow up in the shitstorm and you don't rally against it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you not? And this is smart, and these are educated people.
Yeah.
Smart people who live in the shitstorm and have the thing affecting them on a daily basis. Don't look at it like I can change this, and then like continue to feed into a thing where I'm Puerto Rican because I'm from Puerto Rico. You're from the Puerto Rican diaspora, therefore you're American. I'm like, motherfucker. You're talking about race like it's you're talking about nationality like it's a race when automatically if you say somebody's Latino, you're automatically saying you're at least two races and probably three.
Right.
And you're pitting these two nationalities against each other when you're really talking about this other thing. Like, get your fucking facts straight.
Because at the end of the day, right, it's almost like it's your label. If you could be told what you were from your ancestors, like you said, they wouldn't say you're Puerto Rican. That's you know what it is. People take it as personal, cultural. It's not cultural. It's political and it's geographical. Yeah. Someone else wrote that in the paper, you know, and so that's something I always try to tell people too. You know, is don't get too uptight what someone says to you. Oh, you're not American. Dude, I'm Native American, so I'm just, you know, that's as American as it can get. So, you know,
that's hate that.
Yeah. So, and I've even had uncles use the argument with me. Oh, you're not American. You don't understand American politics because you're not American. I said, well, I'm sitting in North America. You know what I mean? To start, I'm in the continent of America, and I'm Native American.
Indeed.
You know, Cayuga at that. So we, you know, I'm American for sure. But that label, my culture is American. Maybe my geographical label is Canadian, or my political label is Canadian.
Sure.
But as my culture, I'm Native American. Or if you were to look at my other side of culture, you know, African Canadian. But at the same time, you know, I love how they always use that smoke and mirrors thing the English did with the American Canadian. You know, it's all funny. Even how they said the guys who started America were like, oh, they were throwaways. Come on. You're going to send throwaways to a whole big resourceful piece of land to become wealthy and start the most powerful country in the world? That don't sound like a group of throwaways. That sounds like you sent your buddies up there. But
well, some of them were, right? Like the filler people were like, you know, Georgia was a penal colony.
Right.
Australia was a penal colony, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's also examples of like the guys who were fighting in Ireland, taking over Ireland, were the same ones who they were sending through New York and Ontario and Connecticut. And these, I mean, literally the same generals, captains were leading some of the same forces, battle-hardened dudes that were out there putting down insurrections in their own landmass. But it was like, wow. And getting back to the other piece, and I want to let you say what you were saying. Like, there's a great book by the former, so a guy called Eric Williams. I think he's from Barbados. God, he was the prime minister of one of the islands. I can't think of which one right now. And his book, Capitalism and Slavery, which is like, if you don't know that one, that's one to get. Capitalism and Slavery talks about how this whole thing was economically motivated. And,
right.
And you know, like major industries like the insurance industry especially came directly out of ensuring that African slaves arrived in the Americas, you know, right from basically all the British territories, but you know that quickly spread to France, the Dutch, and Portugal, and Spain, and you know the motivation was always economics. So they send their top economic people, their top military people, and then they got to have people to fight. So then they do get the so-called garbage. They get their debtors, they get their poor, they get their the people in jail, and they do kick them out. And then eventually they also said, because we're talking about the British right now, they send the Irish because they didn't give a fuck about any Irish people. When Irish people were looking for something. Their history is ridiculous. So, do you know about what they were doing about the Irish?
Actually, yeah, my girlfriend is Irish, and her parents are very, very proud Irish people. Well, her mother is, and yeah, and actually, I have some Irish in me too down the line. So, it's crazy to think what happened to the Irish people when they got into New York and those type things. They were treated very differently than the rest of the Caucasian people, for sure.
It's why we always bring up that it's, first of all, economic decision, then a racial decision. And there's a great book, also, I think it's called The Creation of Whiteness. I got to look that up for you. And this guy went through, I think it was Virginia, and later like some of the surrounding states, and he went through every transaction, every court document, and talks about when they start referring to people as white versus English or Irish. Wow. And it was of course to distinguish them from black people or African people, because at that time they all had a similar status, right? African people were enslaved, but non-English whites and plenty of poor whites, English whites, were indentured. So, it just got to be easier to have a vernacular where, okay, after the first, Harper's Ferry. No, not Harper's Ferry. I'm getting it wrong. There's an initial rebellion, and after this point, they're like, okay, the easiest thing for us to do is separate us by complexion, and then there won't be any distinction. And it very clearly talks about when race was created in the Americas. Now, I can't speak for any of the islands or in South America or anything like that, but there's a genesis in the 1650s, 1680s in Virginia where it's like, okay, these people are going to be black and they're going to be non-people. They're going to be, and these people are going to be white, and they're going to have a lesser status than the land holding elites. And they essentially recreated the class structure that they had in Europe with a buffer. And these people had better rights, but shit rights still, but they had rights. And then these people had no rights, including Native people. And, economics first, racism afterwards to maintain economics.
Yeah, because even if you hold it, everyone always brings that up. Why is someone racist? Like, why does he just not understand? And it's like it all comes down to, like you said, economics. And that's why it's also brought down through the media. Like, a lot of people don't understand that just about 10, 12 years ago, and maybe a little bit even longer, but things were even different where I'm from, like the jokes, the way that the schools handled things, the things that the schools taught us were different than what I see kids coming home from school with today. Also, I'm like, wow, you can definitely see. Well, because one thing was that we used to have Columbus Day. We used to learn in our history books that Columbus was a good guy. Right. And when I came home, my parents were like, my mom was like, why are they telling you that?
Yeah, buddy.
We used to have Pilgrim Day here in Brantford, and we're Southern Ontario, so we like to be super proud to be. They're very, let's say, white. They're very whitewashed place, and it's just now becoming more multicultural. But when I was a kid, it was a lot less multicultural, and if you were either white and Native. That was what it was. That was the two main races here. There was other blacks, but not very many. But the one thing was we used to do Pilgrim Day. They used to make every kid dress like a pilgrim. You had to take a stick and put your lunch that you would bring to school, wrap it up in a cloth, tie it to the top of your stick, put it over your shoulder, and every kid had to go to school like that. And I looked back at that and I thought, could you imagine being like me? I'm of African and Native American and Irish descent.
Yeah, I see it.
And I'm walking to school doing Pilgrim Days. So, you can see how that was so so embedded. And even if you go in, you know, you're American, so you could see from back in the day with the Jim Crow laws and things like that, when they used to, the cartoons even, you know, it was even in the cartoons and commercials. And to this day, China still does it to this day. They promote soap that's so clean, you can clean the black off your skin, you know? So it's not like, I don't know. It's always, at the end of the day, it's usually economically funded, even if you're going to do something as crazy as a commercial like that. But yeah, so when you traveled the world, you know, you haven't traveled the entire world. I guess I can't say world, but the places in the world that you have traveled, like before your first time ever, you know, leaving the States, how did that affect you and make you see things like differently?
Before leaving, I just want to make sure I'm getting you right. Before leaving the States,
how did your views change after, you know, coming back from your first trip, you know, internationally and seeing a whole different culture and the way things work?
Got it. Let's see. The first place I went was Jamaica in 2000. Well, actually, okay, no, that's not true. The first place I went to Puerto Rico like probably 20 times from, you know, being a baby to an older kid. Right. Were very curated type of trips, you know, with my mom to a certain point. So I know that Puerto Rico is a American territory and a Commonwealth, but it also functions very differently than the United States.
Right.
It's very modern to a point, and then it stops. It's kind of like it's I could say it's like going to the reservation, although I understand that that's totally different, and every reservation is different.
Right.
But you know, it's like, you know, when you cross the border, the rules change, and that's what I'm getting to. This house might not have water, but this house might have a Hummer and solar panels, and there's the casinos down the street. So, you know,
yeah, I hear you.
Or this res might not have water at all, and the other res, they're getting like, you know, $200,000 payouts from the casino every year. So going back to Puerto Rico, the what I first noticed as an adult was that I went with a curiosity and a humility. Also at that time, my dreadlocks were quite long. I had a dreadlock beard at that time. When I finished growing my dreadlocks after 25 years, they were like mid-calf, and my beard was also dreaded. My second dreaded beard actually was down to my belly button. So how I could live in the world, and especially in cultural communities, coming from where I come from, a lot of the typical misgivings that somebody would have for somebody of my complexion to walk into a cultural space and be like, I'm here to learn, or I'm here to participate, and I come with humility. A lot of that stuff was not present. So all that to say, when I went to Puerto Rico, I didn't have that much of a problem initially, except for I was not used to getting money in a second world society. So I'm used to like living in Buffalo, where there's no, you know, I don't have to really pay to live. I mean, like my rent was $315, my electric was free. You know, I moved to PR and I had to live off of what I got, and the money that was available if you work a job was like $4 or $5 an hour. I'm like, dude, I'm not working for $5 an hour. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then, so I made some great friends in PR. I went to study and I learned a lot. I brought my friends back. I continue to go see those same friends. Some I consider some of my best friends actually. And that initial contact was, you know, it still gives to me, and I still give back. My next trip was to Jamaica, and that was like the lid came off, because like Puerto Rico, being an American territory, still has a lot of the same stuff. All the same attributes you would see are mostly there, just scaled way down. Jamaica didn't have any of that. Now, I also went on a very curated trip. I was blessed to go with my Jamaican friend, good brother called Heron, and your father knows Heron actually. He took me on his family reunion, first family reunion his family ever had. I get to go, and I'm over there with my dreadlocks and my love for reggae and my traditional drumming stuff, and I'm just like, I'm just there, like, I'm here for this. I can't wait to see what it ever do. And they're like, who do I mind? Because my complexion, right? Like,
Yeah.
and this is something like as a tangent. One of the first things I learned was that in non-Puerto Rican West Indian society, and I had to look this up later, but what I figured out was that they allowed privilege to mixed race people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in America, right, we have the one drop in your black rule.
Yeah.
In these very small places, they had the one drop and your white rule.
Wow.
Put that in a little bit, right? That's opposite. Yeah. And so privilege was afforded to lighter skinned people automatically. And by privileges, I mean like you could own slaves and land, not like you could work in the house, but of course you could work in the house. So the stigma was very different, like very different. Like a guy like Bob Marley was called white man his whole life. Where I was called nigger my whole life.
Yeah.
Up to a point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Until I moved away from that place. And so Jamaica was a very, very different level. It was a short trip, like 5 days or something like that. But I had never seen a so-called third world society before. And I was, you know what I was overwhelmed with? I was overwhelmed with how conservative it was.
Right.
I was so expecting, you know, Jamaican Rastaman smoking weed. The whole man, it was like a bunch of really poor, very Christian, very humble, very well educated, very polite, very thankful. Again, very religious people. And I was really impressed by that because I was able to make connections between stuff that I'd seen in Puerto Rico and stuff that I'd seen in Jamaica. And I would say that the takeaway from that was that the poorest, most impoverished former slaves found social mobility through imitating the whiteness that they saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially through being as Christian and hardworking and conservative as possible. And that still exists throughout the whole society. My sensei's son just came back from Barbados, and I said, well, how'd you like it? Did you meet any girls? He said, bro, they're too fucking religious there. That's all he had to say. I could write a book, bro. I can tell you.
My grandfather's actually from Barbados, and my step grandfather who took his place is actually also from Barbados. He grew up there, and he's he's a first generation immigrant, and he busted his ass, you know, and he's very religious. And actually, I got to give him a call and give him an apology because the one day I'd said, like, you know, you're too, you know, you're too, I don't know. I don't want to say anything rude about him because he's my grandfather, but, you know, the thing I had said was, man, you're whitewashed, you know, you're living your whole life. And I felt like that probably really hit deep because let's just say he has a friend, and this friend of his had given $25,000 to the Mormon church. 25 bankrolls to the Mormon church.
Get that.
Dark skin, black guy. Now
that hurts me. Like I know that Mormons specifically in the fine print are fully committed to breeding out the native people with whiteness. Like that's in the rule.
Their history as a religion is awful. The Mormons is terrible. Oh man. And because at one point my grandfather wanted me to be a Mormon. When I met the guy who had given the 25 bankrolls, you know, my grandma couldn't see the issue in that. And I get your religion, your choice. You're comfortable there. You have good friends at that church. That's where you feel comfortable. We're not going to judge you. But don't hope, like, you know, we're all praying, don't give your money to these guys because this is just insane, right? And when you think about it, like religion is such a weird concept because of how much it controls people and how the guilt that it puts them through. Where I find, to me, it's supposed to be a comforting thing. Like, I don't really put myself into a box of religion because I'm not in a box of ethnicity anyways, or you know, I'm not expected to run with a certain culture or follow something. Maybe to somebody else I am, but to me, you know, whatever I feel comfortable. So, you know, sometimes I'll pray to Creator or God, but to me, it's all the same thing. It's going to the same place. It's your energy. You know, everybody has a thing that they should. Everybody knows who they are. You know, it's like I'm watching the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, and
God.
you know,
yeah,
Netflix better pay me for saying their damn name. But what I did want to say is, yeah, I'm watching that, and he's just saying, you know, he got caught, he killed 12 people, he did all kinds of nasty, weird shit, and he goes, yeah, I'm evil. He's like, yeah, I'm evil. He's like, everyone's evil, but like me, I'm evil. Like, he just knew, you know. And it's like, you know, you might have, you know, done some things in your past. I've done some things in my past, whatever. But the thing is like, I know I'm not evil. You know what I mean? Like, if I had the chance to save somebody or let them freeze or whatever, I'm always going to save them. You know, I'm not the type of person to like, and I think people know that about themselves. And even if you are the biggest cover up, and I always say this about politicians. Politicians, they put on suits, they look perfect. I always said, why is that? Why can't a dude just come out in his sweats after a game of basketball with his son and say, okay, guys, this is what we got to do? Like, why do we have to have it so prettied up and perfect? How does that not look suspicious? And that really made me think, like, you know, obviously you want to be presentable to the public, and that's the whole idea of wearing the suit. But if you had anything that polished, like if I was selling you a $75 water bottle and it looked like pure diamond, like it just looked gold, beautiful, you're gonna say there's something about that. There's not just like, there's something weird about that water. What are you dressing it up like that for? What's the big deal? Why didn't you just give me the water bottle, man? Like, what's up, you know? And that's what I mean. It's so dressed up to the point, if you're not drawing suspicions. And that's the thing. If you're suspicious about what the government does, you have the majority of people that are like, oh, you're crazy. You know, even if you just say the word like conspiracy, they're like, you're a conspiracy theorist. And you're like, whoa, no, conspiracy is a real thing. Conspiring is a real thing. There's real conspiracies. And people will say, oh, once they hear the word conspiracy, they're like, you're a crazy dude, man. And they're like, we can't even bear it. Like, you know, I'm like, think for yourself, look into this, looking like, oh, no. We already got CNN telling us. And I'm like, see, that's the problem is, you know, what's funny is, you ever heard of Alex Jones?
Sure.
You know, he's the Texas guy, the whack job. He's had some pretty crazy stuff come out online. But you remember that video he made in the 2000s where he broke into a place called Bohemian Grove, and he took.
I think I do.
It's a documentary, and you should check that out. And it even just look at the highlights of it or whatever. But he actually films all these politicians and musicians and high up people doing this crazy ritual called the cremation of care. And they have this giant stone owl, and this is a real place, and all the records are on there.
Hold on, I know about the owl. Alex Jones went up and saw the thing with the owl?
Yeah, he actually snuck in there with his damn camera, him and this other guy with the cameras, and they have a video of these guys doing the cremation of care ritual. And if you go and look at the Bohemian Grove, because I just did this the other night on Wikipedia, you can go ahead and see the list of everybody. It's not like, because this is the thing. They're allowed to admit they're in their group. They're allowed to say the group exists. You just can't know anything else. And even Richard Nixon, they said, because he was a member, and you could go look on Wikipedia, and this is no like something I've heard. This is like stuff I've been looking into, and he said this is the most faggy goddamn thing I've ever seen going there, because you know they're not allowed to have women or children on the campus past night hours. Even the people who they hire, people who work there. If you're a girl and you work at Bohemian Grove, and it's getting dark, you have to go, because they have some, you know, weird skull and bones type ritual shit going there. And when you go look, actually, you know who I found most of the members majority were journalists for the media. Majority. And then you obviously have the politicians and the other guys in the senates and the guys who work for, you know, mayors and things like that, and a couple of ritzies, couple celebrities. But so many journalists, and old journalists too, like ones who've passed away, came and gone. And I'm thinking these are the people who shaped.
Brokaws, those types?
shaped our country. And, you know, so it's a really crazy thing to look into, and the documentary is amazing too. The ritual is creepy though. You know, you'll want to turn down the sound because they're like, it's a bad vibe, you know?
Well, I'll be the first to say that Alex Jones is a crackpot and says a lot of stuff I mostly don't agree with. I haven't sat through one of his talks and said, "Yes, Alex, you nailed it."
I agree. The guy is definitely wacky, but the one thing is he's so far into his own belief that he's actually willing to do something that crazy and actually catch it on film and put it out. And the funny thing is, in the documentary, he's actually going up to people, and he's like, "Hey, I broke in. Like, I got footage of you guys doing the ritual and shit like this." And they're like, "You shouldn't have been in there. It was very disrespectful." Like, they're like these U.S. Senate guys. It's very crazy. And as much as a whack job as he is, and same with David Icke. Do you remember David Icke? He was the guy who believed that the United States government were reptilians.
Oh.
He's the one who started that one.
David Icke, the soccer player?
Pardon?
The soccer player?
No, David Icke, his name is. He's an English conspiracy theorist guy. But he's another one that got so far down in the research that he just started believing the bullshit. You know, it's like once you see, you can't. I always say to people, if you're gonna research the type stuff like that, be sensitive. Don't come and just say, "I believe it, I believe it, I believe it." I mean, like, I'll say my sources. Go think for yourself. I'm not gonna tell you what these guys say is true because, like you said, these guys are some special characters. But I think what happens is they hit that line of truth, they find something, and then they're like, "Oh my God, everything I thought's true, and everything I think is true." So then they just start, like, you get the Alex Jones, like. He was saying, what was he saying? Gay frogs. They're putting gay frogs. He said some crazy shit, but he's also done some crazy shit.
Well, like they say, man, a clock is right twice a day, right? Mm-hmm. People get nuggets. I'm not gonna say that 100% of the stuff he says is wrong, because first of all, I can't research this stuff, nor would I want to spend all my time fact checking all the shit that comes out that guy's mouth. Like, he's obviously some type of autodidactic, like, what do you call it? Asperger's syndrome type of, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just gets something in his teeth and shakes it till it's fucking dead. And and so I can't really, like, be fact checking, 10 things per minute from him. But it seems like he's done research and interviews, and I'm not saying, honestly, I'm really intrigued by that video you're talking about. I really want to see what that is. But I also watched a piece. Now I'm looking at this at Everything You Need to Know But Never Been Told by David Icke. I've watched a piece of his video, and it started real good, and about 3 minutes in, I remember going, I don't think I can fuck with this guy.
And you know what? You know what's funny about him and Alex is when they first started, okay, they weren't so far over the board that you're like, who the fuck is this guy? But if you find anything recent from any of them in the last 20 years, it's like, I think it's also part of the thing. Like, there's a doctor. Have you heard of Dr. Rashid Buttar? He's the guy who's got, like, blackmailed by all the media. Like, look up Rashid Buttar. Nothing will come up good about him, but I'll tell you a little bit about him. He disagrees with most of the FDA, the WHO's practices, and he doesn't believe that the government gives us the full information for their cancer research that they've done.
Okay.
And he does different ways of dealing with kids with autism. He's dealt with 40,000 kids with autism, and he's dealt with 15 terminal cancer patients who only had 6 months to live.
Wow.
Those 15 patients had lived for 20 years.
Wow.
So he's not a joke, but he's another guy. He's another guy who hit that line of truth, and I think kind of, he went there. But the thing about him is he's still a doctor, so he can still be like, no, that's bullshit. That's not what that does. this is what I do, you know. And the thing is there was another lady that came out and she was saying she was an anti-vaxxer. She's saying, no, you know, I had a daughter who got vaccines or whatever, and she was a doctor as well, and she got silenced for 5 years. She had a legal thing where she wasn't allowed to do anything with the media or something like that for 5 years by the U.S. government. And it's like the one thing that people say, and this is the thing, whether, you know, because I'm not going to say I agree or I don't, whatever, because cancer is a very serious thing, and it's if you're going to put your thoughts into that basket, like it's very serious. But the one thing I will say is, if you're putting these things out there, why are they censored? If it's bullshit, why the hell does the government need to take the time to say, oh, we're going to censor it? Like, if this guy's saying I took 15 people, you know, they're real people, why can't us as the public believe that there might be a cure for cancer, or a real cure for autism that goes away from like the whole systematical way we do it of taking pills, using radiation, using things like that that are just as harmful as some of the diseases that we're fighting. And you know, it's definitely something to look into, because if we look at the FDA, look at what they feed people. You go to the grocery store and pick up a processed block of cheese and read what's in it. You know, it's not too far-fetched, because if you remember the one vaccine, they said we're not putting mercury in it. We're not putting ethyl mercury. They tested it. Why is there ethyl mercury in it?
Ew.
Oh, well, we didn't add it. We manufactured it with ethyl mercury. So we don't have to tell you that. We don't have to say that it's in it, because we made it with it. So it's, you know, and it's not too far-fetched, and that's just what I think. You know, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think there is more alternatives than what we're told and what we're shown.
So with this, I will agree, and I'll start with my mom. My mom, when I was a kid, got heavily into vegan lifestyle and juicing. My mom's about one of the healthiest people. I always joke that my mom will outlive us all. Your father knows my mom. At about maybe 15 years ago, I started including shakes and juice in my life. How old do you think I am?
Let's say you look like in your mid-30s.
I'm 46.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So you and my dad are close in age.
Yeah, I think Al's a little bit younger than me, actually. Okay. But you know, whatever. The point being that, like, I've seen over and over again, like you mentioned, ingredients and just food choices. You know, most of our diseases here, the cancers, the leukemias, the heart disease, diabetes, all those, like, they're all lifestyle diseases. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so,
I agree.
Aside from the stuff that, like, you know, I can't say whether or not it was cured with vaccines and bred out, but that's what we've been told over and over again, like the smallpox and polio and those kinds of things. You know,
H1N1 and foot and mouth and Ebola was one. Like, we've had all these things, and you know what's so crazy, actually, and not to cut you off of what you were saying. Actually, you want to finish what you're saying about juicing and with your mother, with the improvements that started.
The piece is that because I was going into the cancer piece that
right.
Dr. Gerson, there's a Dr. Gerson who was curing people with juice and coffee enemas, removing all the you mentioned energy earlier, like taking out all the energy that you would use for digestion and basically giving yourself pre-digested food where the nutrients go right into your body. You don't have to, like, you know, it gets absorbed, like, directly to the small intestine, and then you don't use any energy to excrete. Also, there's next to no solid waste, and they were giving these people, very specially concocted nutrient juices with extra minerals, and giving them enemas, and it was curing people. And this dude, like you talking, like, this guy was totally silenced. And he cured a lot of people, and scientists haven't been able to reproduce what he does 100% of the time. so it's considered not not scientific, right? Not factual, not it's not medicine.
Yeah.
Because the scientific method is it has to be 100% reproducible all the time. So if you
Yeah,
so
I'm with you. Sorry.
these things probably do work, you know what I'm saying? And some of them, and some of these things probably do kill people. But since they don't kill people all the time, or they don't work 100% of the time,
Right.
then they're not considered medicine because medicine is based in science. And which brings me to another point, which is what you were talking about earlier, that we have to be able to agree on facts. And this is kind of where we are in society, right? Because like there's a schism. I mean, I'm talking about America now. American society is completely. Yeah, when I start using words like completely divided and stuff, I don't want to do that. There's parts of society that are not getting along and aren't able to see eye to eye on stuff, and have completely different fact groups to draw from to prove their points and even like build their mental constructs off of. And that's becoming a bit of an issue. So going back to conspiracy, when people talk about conspiracies as though they're facts, or when their worldview is built up of unproven things, what do you say to those people? Like, my worldview is completely different from some of these people. I try to talk to people. I'd be looking at them like, yo, you're fucking crazy. I had a friend who took me outside and showed me 6 9s that he had in his car for when the revolution comes. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, first of all, you're old. Like, this dude was like in his 60s. First of all, he's gonna get chopped up. He's gonna get slit from his gullet all the way to his neck. I'm like, who you fighting?
Wow.
But you know what? I'm like, he's gassed up on OANN and Newsmax and believes everything the Trump people were talking about. Sending me videos about how the 5G is gonna kill everybody in fucking New York City in October.
Yeah. Oh my God. And right, see, and even that is another thing. That's another one of like those things I was talking about. These guys who have the ability to sit there and go through bullshit, I give them credit. Like, how much time can you spend on bullshit before you have to close that webpage down and say, fuck it, let me get onto something real here that's actually happening that I can physically see. But the one thing is, that's another thing, 5G, okay? So it's not like it's gonna fucking eradicate your brain and melt it. No, but what it does is it's just like any technology. I'm sitting here with a cell phone plugged into my laptop, and they're both, they're high tech. Like, these are putting out radiation.
Indeed.
Will that increase cancer? Will that increase chance of blindness and things like that? Yeah, I mean, these are facts. Those are the facts, and this is where it gets Alex Jones batshit crazy. Is when those guys find the line of truth. Okay, the 5G can increase cancer. It can increase radiation because that's what we're using, right? This is what it is. It's gigahertz. We're talking gigahertz.
Yeah, everything's vibrational, especially on the non-physical. Yeah.
And you've made music. I made music for most of my life, and we both know hertz. We know what those things are. Those are vibrations and sounds, and they create certain feelings you can manipulate. And I learned how to produce on the computer, and I finally remember learning how to use hertz. If they're at these frequencies, they're considered positive and low. It's like playing notes on a guitar. You want to write a sad song or a happy song, you're going to write it in certain scales. So when those vibrations, they're real things for sure. And the crazy thing about this is I think that we're at such a split point right now with media that you don't know where to get your shit from. And that's actually part of the reason I wanted to start this whole podcast. You want to...
No, I do. I get it from all over.
Yeah.
When they were attacking the Capitol, I wasn't watching TYT and everybody that I love, who I actually agree with. I was watching the fucking crazy people. I wanted to know what they were talking about. And I heard them say, I heard the chick say, there's a fucking there's what do you call them? Antifa plants in the crowd. I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna say Antifa did it. Like the next week, all they got to say is, "Oh, well, it was Antifa." I'm like, and the next day, the woman was like, "Well, it was Antifa." I'm like, okay, was that woman, the woman that got shot, was she Antifa or was she a martyr? You can't have both. Again, your facts have to be fucking facts. Like, So I get my stuff from every I have a center right guy that I listen to. I have a crazy set that I listen to. I have a center left spot that I listen to, and I listen to a bunch of crazy lefties too. And then I make sense out of it. But I know enough history and culture where I can make my own opinions out of that instead of being, led around by the nose. Like, oh, that must be fucking true, because I mean, and this is our problem. This is I mean, my wife and I talk about this all the time. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but like, I do my best to stay informed about stuff, and I have a bit of a history background, a sociology background, whatever. And I've lived a little bit, and I've lived in different types of places, and I've been places, and I can safely say that if you don't have a wide background of information to study from, you'll get fucking fooled. You won't be able to tell bullshit from the real shit. Like, that's why I love my wife. My wife is from deep in Spanish Harlem, and she smells bullshit like your pops can smell bullshit. Like you gotta be raised around grimy people to have a sixth sense like these people, man. And she shows me shit. She'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here." And she's the type of person that if there's a problem coming, she won't be where the problem is. She has the best karate in the world. She won't have to fight you because she won't even be in the fucking place. She will have smelled it 10 minutes beforehand and got the fuck out. And that's, you know what I'm saying? And that's a different type of information education that you know what I I mean? You can't
that you can only learn through that lifestyle. You can only learn it through that lifestyle, and it's funny because when you meet people from very serious neighborhoods and they've seen things that, you could see the same thing on someone who's been in a war in a third world country. They almost have a similar way of reacting. And sometimes maybe not as bad as when you're blowing people's arms apart and whatnot overseas and whatnot. But you can see the similarities and how it's affected them and the things they've seen and the way that they react to people. They won't risk it. Whereas someone like me, Brantford's not the prettiest place to be from, but I don't get too worried about situations as like my dad does. Like my dad would say, hey, that guy's going to set you up. And even if it didn't happen, my dad's still like, you shouldn't have been there. It's just like, people from the hood, they have that sixth sense. Like you were saying, that sixth sense where they can feel it out,
your pop's been through some real shit, man. The stuff he's told me about, I met him in a situation like just before, and then saw the change from him going through this thing that he went through, man. And he's still a beautiful brother, but he has never been the same from that event. And PTSD is real. Poverty is a PTSD. That's like literally like psychologists are diagnosing poverty as a PTSD. And like, because and you can like to the level that you can get a medical card in New York State by claiming PTSD from poverty. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like a medical card, because it's real. But like, the PTSD that we're talking about from growing up in the hood and being around horrible situations is very similar from growing up in a third world society where violence is going off or being in war. You know what I mean? You never know where it's fucking coming from, and you see people who you love go down around you. Like, I'm blessed like you, like to have not have gone through those experiences or put myself in situations and had the privilege to be able to extract myself.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of fucked up shit, but when I compare it to other people, it's like, and a lot of those things were my own doing. Right. A lot of those things were the people I chose to roll with or whatever it was I was doing. And mind you, the guys I've always rolled with have always been level-headed guys, and I can always tell when someone's an idiot. Even if he's a bad motherfucker, like I know I can look at him and see why he's doing it, or I could feel it, I can feel the energy of that person and why they're in the position or why they choose to be in that position. Or they feel they should choose to be in that position, but everything plays into it.
Yes, sir.
And poverty is a very real thing. And it's one thing that people really talk about it as if we don't have poverty in these places like Canada or the United States. We'll go try living here. And I'm thinking, well, there's people here in Canada who don't have running water. And I seen the craziest news article. Somebody had taken a plane in Canada to Beaver Creek, which is in Nunavut. It's a completely remote community, Native American community. They were issued to get vaccines for the coronavirus first, which actually, sounds a little bit a little bit weird. But they were a priority to get these vaccines. And this couple had flown from, I think it was Montreal, went there, snuck into the reservation, said they were there to work so they could get COVID vaccines. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And I said, it definitely wasn't his wife's idea. That was that dumb motherfucker's idea to get on the plane and go to a remote community, pretend you're from there, you belong to be there working, they said, and try to get vaccines. Like, what are you doing?
Did they run out of vaccines in Canada?
They did, but they've even ran them where I live, but only for old age homes.
Okay. You know, I'm looking at the map right now, man. I can see none of it. Like it's like the top of Canada going up like adjacent to Greenland.
It's not easy to access.
I get it. So they're checking to see if the vaccine works. If they inoculate those people, they'll see if it actually works because likely those people haven't been across it yet. Haven't come across actual COVID yet.
Exactly. Do you remember when H1N1 was a problem?
Yeah.
Someone actually, Dr. Rashid actually brought this up the other day, and he was saying, if you know anyone from around this time, ask them if they remember, and I guess you would fit that time group, of H1N1 in LA when they had rolled out a vaccine for H1N1. They were talking about maybe we'll make it mandatory, and everyone said, we don't want it, so they didn't make it mandatory because the majority of people didn't want it because they didn't even get sick. 64 people went and got it, and all those people died.
Ew.
And it was on the news. They were talking about it, but then it got blocked out because people started linking it to the vaccine. And their cause of death was H1N1. They never even had H1N1. They just went and got the vaccine. So vaccines are a very weird thing. And that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up too, was when you look at the patent, COVID-19 has an American patent that you can still look up and find it.
I've heard that.
And It's been trying to be patented since 2013. And if you look at the timeline of it, it's super, super odd. It's super odd when you look at the timeline here because of what in 2020 they had said something about family litigation, and then that was a little bit after it came out. But if you look at who owns the assignee for the patent, it's the Purebright Institution, which is a European, it's an English institution in Europe. And what they do is they study biological diseases from animals and try to prevent them from coming to humans. Now, the weirdest thing about this is the patent's owned by someone in the U.S. They don't disclose who, but they just say it's assignee to the Purebright Institution. And they've been working with the COVID-19. They've had it patent 14 times. So it means they're recreating the disease. That means that they were recreating the disease since 2013. So when you think about that, they've had the patent for the virus before they've even had the frickin' vaccine. So they've had to have worked to make this virus able to transfer to humans anyways. It already wasn't able to. They said it came from eating bats. But people have been eating bats for fucking thousands of years and they never got coronavirus. So it's kind of funny that just that day that was how it happened. But and if you find that patent and you look at it in the Purebright Institution now, this is where it gets really weird. Bill and Melinda Gates grant the Purebright Institution $200,000 in 2013 for foot and mouth disease, and that was their 49th grant they've done with them, and then went ahead for other things that they funded them for as well. And I'm sure you've probably heard the backlash of Bill Gates and his vaccine drama. What he's done, he's I'm not saying he's the Antichrist or all the other coronavirus conspiracies, but he definitely has hurt some people and made some mistakes with his vaccines, and they weren't rich Americans. They were poor third world kids, and so it does give everything a fishy feel to it when you're talking about the vaccine. And you have Bill Gates, who's literally not a doctor. He doesn't even have a college degree in anything, I don't think. He created Microsoft, and Microsoft gets viruses all the time. I don't think he's really our savior. So what are we going to do from here, and what do you think about the vaccine? You think you'll be getting the vaccine or what?
Well, let's go back a few steps. There's as many claims that that patent idea is totally false, and companies like Reuters and AP that I trust back that up when they say that's totally false. But I have
Purebright doesn't have the patent.
Yeah, that's Reuters. I can text that to you right now. But so there's as many arguments for the one side as the other side. With regards to the vaccines, like I haven't had a vaccine in some time. See, I had a tetanus a few years ago when I went to a physical. When my daughter was born, we seriously considered not vaccinating her. And then we were like, oh, well, she can't go to school. You know, what is that going to look like? So what my wife came up with was to hound the doctors to make sure that they didn't have, you know, like you were saying, lead and mercury and all the crazy in it. And we had a really good doctor, and he made sure that that was happening. And then we spaced them way out. So she got one, and then months went by, and she got another, and so on. She didn't get 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 at the same time, which I know is common practice. Well, I think up to 5. And then I'm not really, like I said, I never get the flu vaccine. I was not planning on getting this coronavirus vaccine. At least not the first one. As crazy as it is, I had COVID this time last year. Yeah, January 26th, about a year ago, I had COVID before we even knew what it was. Pretty much, they were still talking about it. My wife was concerned about it. Her I guess mother-in-law, her father's ex-wife, whatever you call that, was she lives in Tokyo, and she was like, yo, Tokyo's locked down. This shit is coming your way. You need to buy food, basically, is what she was telling us. So we were I'm getting sick, and I don't know why. And people around me are sick, and I don't know why. I didn't even think I had anything serious, but about a month later, I still couldn't smell, and like I think it was mid-February or very early March, they released the symptom that if you can't smell, you probably had COVID. Go get checked, and I was like, oh shit, I had the plague. Right? So that explained that fucking yellow cement I was sneezing out for the last fucking 3 weeks. Yeah. That was, so all that to say, I'm not really afraid of getting COVID. I'm pretty healthy. I'm juicing right now. I'm in karate 3 times a week. I think my body's ready to fight this thing off. And my job said I have to have a vaccine. And there's no vaccines left. So
yeah,
I don't know what
figure, right?
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy thing to think because, I haven't looked at the text yet, but I will check that out from Reuters. But the one thing about the Purebright Foundation is that they do that. Like I'm not saying that they've been patented to put us out and that they're the reason why this is all happening. But what I am saying is that they are dedicated to treating and researching diseases that spread from animals to humans. And perfect.
What does that look like? You can click that?
Yeah. I'm just gonna search it up on Reuters through my phone on the side here.
Yeah.
But the one thing about that is that this is something that we knew could have happened. And I think Bill Gates, to get back on his rich ass topic, he did a diagram before. What would happen if a world pandemic were to hit? Where would it spread? How would this happen? And he had the globe out, and he did a whole presentation. So it's kind of something that anybody would have known about. And actually, I believe that Bill Gates just became the largest farmland owner in America just last week as well. Wow, he just bought a bunch of farmland too. So I mean, I've never really thought, like, every time someone would say anything about Bill Gates, I was like, why are we even care what he does? Like, he's a Microsoft guy. But now that's the point where he's on TV talking about why we need to get vaccines. Okay. And I thought about, who else would you trust more than Bill Gates? Like, what? It's Bill Gates. He's smart. He's rich. He's a nice guy, whatever. He has the whole image. But I was like, there you go again with the whole polished thing. You got this polished old white guy. He came on Twitter. I got the vaccine. So, you know, it is a weird thing. The one thing that I don't follow is that people are saying, you know, the craziness, the batshitness of, oh, they're going to put a microchip in you or whatever. And I'm like, I don't really think they need to do that to me because I'm not that hard to find. Like, I'm not like a mountain man. Like, I'm, you know, I'll walk to the grocery store at some point if I'd get too, sitting around too much, So I'm not too hard to find. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But what I do think it is when there's a safety measure, the one thing about this is if you say this came from a bat, it was a bat that fucked up the world. Now all you guys got to stay inside, social distance, everything else. And we start losing freedoms, like we're seeing other laws be passed, and we're going through that crazy election that you guys just went through. Like, it almost seems like fool me once, fool me twice type thing. Like, if we were to say this was a bat, we can't even be blamed. Like, we can't say this is for economic power or control or whatever it is because it was a bat. So who are you going to say it was? The Chinese government, the American government, all these things. Everyone wants to point somewhere, but at the end of the day, I think that my personal opinion is I do think this is almost a way to say, like, look, this is almost not an excuse, but a reasoning of why you have to listen to us. Like, you're, and it's, what do they call that? Fear mongering, where once you get everyone scared, it's easier to get them to listen to you. Like, it's simple. And when you're scared for your life, it's easier to go along with it, right? It's so much easier.
It's been a struggle. I'm not gonna lie. Like, once people are scared and people are dying. We've lost 14 people, and my dad just passed away 3 weeks ago. But he died of a heart attack, a non-COVID related heart attack. But people are falling over, and and death is becoming commonplace in our community. And like I don't know what it's like in Brantford or on the res, but I'll bet it's as hard hit as the Bronx. The Bronx is got the highest numbers of COVID in the New York City metro area, and my neighborhood in particular has some of the highest. I haven't checked the numbers recently. Last time I checked, like, if you give my neighborhood a 5, downtown in Battery City or in really really fancy Brooklyn, it's at 0.5.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the people who have the let me try this again. The poorest people are dying. I'm not telling you news right now. But it's a struggle for the people who have to actually be outside. Like I told you, I work in an elementary school. I walked in a room today that had 13 kids in it. You know what I mean? And this is like that means their parents don't have anybody to give their kid to, because for the most part, people that have kids are trying to keep their kids home, unless they're really, really, really concerned about the socialization piece. But right. they're sending their kids to school scared, man. Like, if they're not scared for the kid, they're scared for themselves. If they're not scared for themselves, they're scared for their parents. Like, I want to go home and visit my mom. My wife is with my mom with my daughter right now, and I want to go back as soon as possible and be with my mom, because her husband just passed away, my dad.
Right.
But I'm scared that now I'm in the school with the kids. One of those kids is gonna get me eventually. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm probably good. I might just carry it. But what happens if I put it on my mom? My mom is a spry, healthy 78. Yeah, but like, what happens if mom gets it? Like, I'm like, this shit is crazy.
And I'm sorry to hear about your dad, by the way.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, man. But,
you seem like a pretty mentally strong guy, so you seem like you're handling it pretty well, but that's also a tough time for anyone, especially in this time. It probably, even though it was non-COVID related, it probably still, it just settles in more of the reality of what's really happening in the world every second, realistically.
It's a motherfucker. I'm not gonna lie, but I'll say, my dad sat me down about a year ago. He was like, "Yo, look at this medical report, man. Look at this shit right here." He's like, "This is fucked up." He's like, "Son, I'm dying." So, he set me up. He set me up powerfully to be able to deal with that. Liam, hold on a second. I have to actually run off camera and grab my my plug for my computer as I see it's about to die.
No worries, brother. No worries.
But man, I can't really speak knowledgeably about a guy like Bill Gates and his and what he's doing in the United States or worldwide with vaccines and chips. I heard about the chip for a long time, man, and I've seen some people have gotten chips. I carry a phone around, you know what I'm saying? Like the phone is basically a big ass chip. It just doesn't fit in my body yet.
Yeah.
They can track me. They know everything I'm fucking thinking.
Yeah.
They who I'm talking to. There's a written record because I text shit every 5 seconds rather than talk to people. They know everything I'm doing. They know what games I play, what porn I like. What anything.
Yeah.
Well, not from my phone, but you get it. Like
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guarantee. Like the other day, I'm talking about how Walmart bought a bunch of companies. They actually just bought out a bunch of sports companies, and I did look into that because my girlfriend's watching a video on her phone, and I heard the girl in the video say, "Oh, I went to Walmart today," and of course, you went to Walmart because everywhere else is closed. But she went to Walmart and bought a shirt, and she said how soft it was. Oh, this doesn't even feel like it's from Walmart. Walmart quality, what? And I'm thinking, because I'm talking about boxing gloves or something, and an ad pops up because your phone's always, well, we're not listening to hear what you're doing. We just want to know what you want to buy, they say. But
fuck, they're not.
So I look and they say, oh, we got IBF Thai boxing gloves at Walmart. I'm like, IBF Thai boxing gloves at Walmart? Where the fuck? When do you ever hear of that? Like, you don't ever hear of that. So I look into it. These places are going bankrupt. Guess who's buying them? Walmart. Now they have overstock of this beautiful product. And what a sick game to play when everyone's locked down. And I run a small business. I sell clothes. I make clothes, design them, but I don't run an actual on-campus business. I sell it from my house. I run it through my computer and my phone. But that would have generally affected me. I would be so livid if people couldn't come and buy a shirt off me for $25, but they're up at Walmart. And Walmart's benefiting off small companies like me who have, or probably on the next couple steps ahead of me, but still, they have boxes of their beautiful products or whatever it is they're trying to do. And now that they can't even make ends meet, Walmart gets to step in and say, hey, we'll give you $1 million. That ain't nothing to us. And then, there goes your life dreams and your company that, maybe would have taken off if these things didn't happen.
Well, so, I mean, that's the business model, right? Like find out what's working. You create a brand, you market it, you create a clientele. They step in and either muscle you out or buy you out, and then and then either sit on your product or not. Right? Like and what it is, and that, I mean, that was it pioneered by Amazon? I think it was perfected by Amazon. I don't know who did it first, but obviously Amazon wanted that shit. And they, all the online markets that they created, like, they track what you're selling, they track how you're doing, they track who's interested and how much interested you get, and if it crosses the threshold and stays there long enough, they'll either push you out or buy you out. And in a way, that's a success, right? Like if you do get $1 million for what you created, out of whatever your seed money is with, then you can look at that like a win, and you can take that $1 million and make your next thing. If you're really about that business, you probably got I'm not saying you, I mean anybody. It's probably got 10 fucking ideas that they're waiting for $1 million to do 2 of those projects with. I asked a good friend of mine, has an amazing bar in Buffalo, New York. I used to go there to his house when I was a kid, and his parents had the bar next door. It was, can I say, it was kind of a shithole. It was a little dive bar. But now it's a venue that attracts national acts, and they've bought up like half of that block where he grew up on that I would go visit this guy on, and. And they just opened another bar with a different clientele and genre of music they're serving. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I asked him, if I don't know, Hard Rock or whatever came to buy their facility and put their brand on it, if they would sell. He was like, "Fuck no. Like, my family's been building this for what, 40 years now. More than anything, if we had the opportunity, we'd like to franchise this. We'd like to expand to other markets, and it was an interesting way to look at it, man. Because like, I've always thought what would it be like to build a brand and be able to cash in? Mm-hmm. And he's like, what if I built a brand and maximized it and had generational wealth, right? And I was like, that's very powerful, right? You can get generational wealth both ways, but obviously the people who maintain their businesses and grow their brand and grow their brand, like, you know, and now we're talking about like the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Fords and those kind of people, and the Cargills, and then the ones we never hear of who you know, made that other leap to like, you know, off planet or whatever. Right. Like, yeah, you're right. The people who are going to be on the space station or whatever. Those people, like those get to be the richest people. Unless you sell out and you have a sweet fucking money manager and you do hedge fund type shit. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the people who have fuck you money all invest their money. They build their money from, like, you know, capitalism to a point, but then they flip their money on the investment market. And that's where, like,
well, and it's also a system, right? Because you got rich guys, but you have actually smart rich guys too, right? Like you could have a rich guy, he's got $40 million. So he's going to leave his kids money. Then you got the smart rich guy, he's got $40 million. He's going to leave his kids money. The difference is they hand down a knowledge. They sit with their son, they teach them the business. From the time they're young, they know their son ain't going to fuck up the business money. And because no matter what, you could leave your business or you could leave your 40 million to the hands of your kids, and it only takes one or two of them or 2-3 bad generations to really you're back to square one, and someone's got to grind even harder than you did. So it is a thing of, like, you see these families that have been rich for hundreds of years. Sure. So maybe they had some idiots that messed up, but they had enough cushion to sit on and keep going. But the one thing that they kept doing was expressing that history and knowledge of how our family made our money, so that when they're gone, they're not actually, they know that the company will either grow or at least say sustain for the next generation, because it's always a risk, right? You never know. And you there's tons of all these guys whose dads, oh, my dad's $40 million in the bank and he gave me a couple million, and they turn out to be, you know, drug addicts or whatnot, or die young. And you hear those stories a lot, but those are the guys whose dads didn't really say, look, this is how the system works, and this is why I'm rich. They kind of, a lot of those guys are probably guilty of something. They don't really want to explain, like, this is what I had to do. So, you know, but yeah, it's a crazy time.
Do you think Donald Trump does coke?
Yeah, I do.
I think he's a classic cokehead personality.
I think he does drugs. Like, I think he does drugs. I don't think he's like a total drug abuser, like he's all fucked up. But I think he likes his drugs. Like, I think he likes to get drugged up. I mean, look at his lifestyle. Look at the generations he's lived through, and look at the money he's had. You think he hasn't dabbled? You must be nuts.
Yeah, I've never met a white millionaire that's never done cocaine. I haven't seen that yet. Like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this, I'm not really like talking about Trump is kind of like is really left field right now, because that's not something I usually do. But since we have the opportunity, man, we're talking about wealthy people. Like, this is the kind of guy, like, I know these guys, man. Like, you know, people who do meth or people who've done coke for a real long time, it creates this very, like, paranoid, narcissistic type of aggressive personality. And you can tell when somebody's fucking using, man. I've held that belief for a long time. They're like, oh, okay, you never drank ever? Okay, cool. But what's going up your nose? Right? This dude really strikes me like at least uppers, at least ephedrine. Like, you seen the picture with I was
gonna say, with the drawer open and they found his little capsules there. Yeah, I'd seen that, and they were saying that it's basically like a synthetic meth or whatnot. Right. And it definitely seems that he acts like he's on it. I mean, especially if you watch his different interviews, one from another, in timelines, go a couple months apart, you'll see like the way he's living his life, basically. You know, like you could tell he's partying. Oh, you could tell he's partying more because he does. You know what he's gonna do when he's all partied up? He's gonna say the things that excites people, and I think it might have been you that said, but he really gave all those fucking idiots and scumbags a voice and an image to wear, like a thing to be proud of. Like, you could be the biggest dirtball redneck scumbag, and they just throw on the MAGA hat, and they're like, "Oh, I'm political now. Like, this is politics now." You know what I mean? So,
I think I implied that through the people who, you know, from not having something, a basis of information to be able to tell what's a lie and what's not. That's definitely what I was reaching for. Yeah, I'm disappointed with where the U.S. has always been. You know, I get in trouble for saying this, and a lot of people don't like this. The one thing I respect about the thing at the Capitol is that when I've seen, you know, excuse me a second. I respect the fact that they took the fight to the Capitol. I don't respect that those are the assholes that took the fight to the Capitol. I respect that they identified that the problem is coming from the Capitol and went to the Capitol instead of burning down their own fucking neighborhood. Now, a lot of those people would burn down, I don't know what, suburbs, rural communities. I'm not clear. But like when blacks and Latinos have a problem, we burn down our own fucking neighborhood. And I've always been disgusted with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so again, I'm not agreeing with these people at all, but in this very narrow space called where and who you took the fight to, that's correct.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah,
like,
definitely, because that's the one thing I can say though about Trump is I'll put my personal opinions of him aside, and I will say this. I do think the media has definitely turned things towards him. And I'm not saying like what he said was correct. What I'm saying is I definitely do think the media did a really big part in really trying to get people to go a certain way. Because, you know, imagine if the guy actually got a second run and he came up and he's like, you know what? I fucked up. He's like, I wasn't educated enough. I'm here again. I'm going to do it right this time. He said, guys, like, there was a different way to take it. We would actually probably have said, all right. Because he never really came out. He's like, fuck you guys. He always just had these things where like smirky, cocky things where you knew what he was trying to say. But at the same time, if he were to come back and he had all these people, because he's even got his own Republicans against him and all these things, if he were to come back and say, you know what, guys, let's do this for the people in America, not just say, okay, yeah, you know, I think someone said one time is patriotism is about the people in America, not just the name America. You're not proud to just say the word America. You're proud of every person in this country if you claim that you're a patriot. So, you know, patriotism and racism have no part in the same conversation, in my opinion, because when you think about it, if you're going to say you hate America, you're hating the soil that tons of different cultures and colors had put their hands into to build. So, you know, what is there? If you hate black people, you hate America yourself, you know? So I don't know what to say, you know?
I have a hard time understanding where those people are coming from, man. You know, like in terms of the racism that's endemic in it, like, I mean, in Buffalo, when I was growing up, there was skinheads, and those people were Klan adjacent. Like the head of the Northern Klan was rumored to be in northern Pennsylvania, south of Salamanca, which is south of some hella Seneca area actually, and those people were there talking crazy all the time. I always saw them, and even if I didn't see them, it was in the ethos of the society. Like if you don't see people who are different from you, then kind of anything goes racially and ethnically, right? Like if you don't see black people and there's no fear of saying something that would offend people or identify you as a racist, then what do you have? What do you have to check you other than your own conscience? And if you don't have a conscience that's built up around that, and the society is okay with it, then there's no guards. There's no checks on that. And yeah, people are quite. I forgot where we started on this particular subject, but I don't think that that the racism that's built into the Trump so-called conservatives is going to really go away, because that's always been an undercurrent since like the 1600s, like we were talking about. It's
just Jim Crow's, the cartoons. This is something that's deeply embedded, even. And like I was saying before, you know, the jokes. If you go look at back, like Dave Chappelle, okay, Dave Chappelle busts anybody's ass. He'll get everybody. And if you let's say you're really anti-racist, like let's say you're a white person and you really don't like racist people, you really do genuinely love all cultures. You'll see those people, they'll start the Chappelle show with a frown, like they're like, why is he doing? And then they start to, like, you can see they light and they're like, oh, okay, this dude's really fucking funny and creative. But he was able to take, and it was funny the way he quit. I thought that was just the most amazing thing, to just quit. And the only time he would come back was to throw it in their faces. Like, no, I did it because you wanted me to wear a dress and you screwed me out of 19 million because I don't want to wear a dress. Just saying, like, he's not even sugarcoating it. And he got blacklisted. Oh, he's crazy. He's on drugs. He's smoking dope with DMX. They were saying fucking crazy things about him. But the truth is he was being true to himself, and he wasn't hiding it from anybody.
Indeed.
And that goes to show how they silence people, like, big time.
But Dave is at a level where he couldn't be silenced. You see, he comes back with the Netflix specials. They talking shit about him. Oh, he's a racist. He's a homophobe. He's a transphobe. He should be canceled. And to Dave's credit, and to Dave's genius, he wasn't in none of that really mattered, man. People love Dave so much. He's kind of like Michael Jackson. Like, people don't give a fuck. They're like, this man.
People don't care what the accusations are. Once that Michael comes on, you don't bring it up.
Indeed, you're grinding on your friend.
But even with Michael was such an interesting story too, because you were in this thing of like, you know, the kid was raised as such a monster. It was almost like you could see, you know, it was almost hard to believe, but it was almost like, if this did happen, this is probably one of the most understandable people that would be like, not that I would understand. I mean, I'd still have to slap the motherfucker out just for if it was true. But I mean, in all honesty, look at his life and the destructive childhood his dad put him through. He's probably still thinks he's 6 years old because he never knew how to be 6 years old. You know, he never had a chance. He was the forefront in getting his ass beat, and all his brothers were hating on him because his dad was put all his investment into Michael, and everyone else kind of, you know, in the back. And once Michael hit, he was the biggest Jackson of them all. And so he had a lot of emotional issues, you could see, and also he never really got to spend time with his mother because he was on the road and his dad didn't give him a chance to. His dad would make him rehearse to the point where, like, you know, it was abuse, and that's part of the reason he was so good, because once his dad seen he had more natural talent than the rest of the family, he busted Michael's ass, and I think that really. I don't even know if Michael's dad really ever told him he did a good job. Like, I think that's why he was such a perfectionist. If you've ever seen his background of the way he wasn't like a dick, but he was like a pretentious dick. Like, he would be like, oh, the note is off. And they'd do it again. Oh, the note is off. Like, he wouldn't let it be wrong. He had this thing where it's like he felt like he would be punished if the song had one off beat or something, you know? Just a perfectionist, and that could really, I think, destroy people. Like, really.
Well, I mean, right? We're still talking about PTSD, right? Like,
exactly, yes.
Somebody who has been beat and terrified his whole life is waiting, and then in the public eye, and always wondered about people who don't know. He like had a social media life before there was like social media experience, right? Like, everybody knew about it. He was always in the public eye, and everything he thought and did was scrutinized and visible for somebody to see, to the extent that it was like before that was a thing. And that was, you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that was traumatic, especially at that time. And you know, I can't speak for or say anything about what he was accused of doing. Of course, none of us know, but I've seen people who've gone through less that have been crazier. You know what I mean? But to the piece about his art and his perfectionism, man, I mean, this guy was raised around people like, look, Stevie Wonder, and
Mhm.
was came into contact with Quincy Jones at a very early, in his 20s, and was produced, by I guess geniuses. I can't tell if Stevie Wonder's a genius or Quincy Jones a genius, but I know all their music and it takes me places. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who
Oh, well, they're certainly geniuses when you look at the times, and even if you know that feeling of when I hear all the new music and I'll be around a couple guys and they're playing their music, different rap songs coming on, whatever they're into, and once I hear an old song, I'm like, oh, an instrument, like a voice, and a nice rough recording. Ah, nice. Like, you want to take a break from the polishness sometimes because you want to get back to the art of it. And that's the one thing, is that these guys you couldn't really say they did anything incorrect or that there was anything mediocre about them, but it was still artistic. And I definitely do think those guys are geniuses for that. And I mean, Michael's from Motown. If you look at all the greats just from Motown, and not only did he come up with them and grow up around with them and sing around with them, he competed and smoked them. So I mean, he smoked all those guys out the water, and his name's mentioned probably a million times more a day than them. And
Indeed.
And not to say, like, hey, I mean, the work ethic he had was limitless, just phenomenal. So,
you sparked my memory for a second, man. Did you ever see this documentary called "Standing in the Shadows of Motown"?
no, you know what? I've been watching documentaries for like 3 days straight, so I'm gonna have to throw that on.
It's delicious, man. It's about the backing band at Motown, and just
Yeah.
talking who they were and what they did. There's a few of those, a few video documentaries came out. I think one came out about Stax. One came out about I can't think of it. It's a white label, but like bands that played for singers through the 60s and 70s and created sounds and just like that we all identify with and have heard as part of the lexicon of culture. Like, you hear without knowing you're hearing it at like the Walmart or the 7-Eleven, or like when you're driving around, or like at somebody's house, just in the background, that like creates like the experience that kind of is a homogenous for people in North America in a lot of ways. So this documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown, is about those people, and like, kind of what they did, and it kind of brings them up and they play a show together or whatever, but you got to see who they were and what made them so great. It was very powerful. I think you'd like it. It's
so sorry to cut you off, but we're on the documentary topic, and I'm definitely going to check that out, and I'll send you a message and let you know what I think after I watch it. But you know what I just had came across, and so you've obviously been to Staten Island before, right?
Yeah, I've taught there a lot.
Have you ever seen or checked out the Willowbrook Institution for the mentally retarded that they used to have there? Mm-mm. And have you ever heard of that? Like, what that was? I watched this documentary. They actually housed the most disabled people in America at one place at one time at the Willowbrook Institute.
That was in Staten Island.
That was in Staten Island.
I have heard of that. Yes.
That is fucking crazy shit. And the abuse that happened there and everything, and they had John F. Kennedy came out and said, "This is a snake pit, man." He said he walked out of there on news. His face was like, "Oh my god!" And actually, their max capacity was 4,000 disabled students or kids. They had 6,500 people there in that little place, and kids started going missing. The disabled kids started going missing, and they were already being like greatly abused. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I teared up watching this documentary. It is completely heart-wrenching. And they actually, there's one called Cropsey and there's one called 25 Years Unforgotten. I suggest to watch them both together.
Okay. Yeah, if I want
or close to each other one day after another. But the one was the guy who was said Hugh Grant. I think his name was Hugh Grant. They said that he was killing these kids, abducting them on Staten Island, but they never had evidence. They never had evidence against the guy. He was just a drifter. He was a homeless dude. He was a bum. He was a drunk. But they were saying he was the reason these kids were going missing. But they never looked at any of the staff members from that Willowbrook Institute. They never looked at anything, and all the kids were buried behind the Willowbrook Institute, which was where a lot of the homeless people would stay. And also, the police had said whoever was doing this knew the underground of the institute. They knew the sewers. They knew everything. It was crazy. And this guy actually got sentenced for it. He stayed in jail for 25-something years. Then he got sentenced. But what's crazy about is looking back is the Staten Island police, they didn't really want to find out who it was. They didn't. They had a guy, they had a face for who was doing it, but they didn't actually find out because the murders never stopped, and they still locked him up for those ones. It was just crazy story.
Dude, that hurts. Oh my! I don't think I need to watch that one, man. That's fucking disgusting.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
it's nuts. And I never knew that. I always thought Staten Island was a hot dog eating competition place.
Dude, yeah, that place is bananas. I go to Staten Island because I've gotten work there, but that's never been a place that I've hung out. I went there intentionally twice to a Sri Lankan place, which is just bananas. Like there's a little hole in the wall spot that's pretty famous for what they make. But otherwise, it's kind of like it's basically a big suburb. It's hella Trumpy. Right now, it's hella COVID. Like the highest rates in the whole New York City area. Like where I was talking about my spot. Oh, that's right, because I was saying my spot was a 5. I wasn't counting Staten Island. Staten Island at that time was a 10.
Damn.
Because that's how they get down. They're not wearing masks. They're like they were. I've seen some news reports where like bars where were holding rallies outside and the owners were getting arrested because they weren't following lockdown laws. They were having rallies outside their spot, of course, no mask, screaming about how like every bar should be open. The weight rooms and that kind of stuff, like fitness type spots. It's a very different New York City to be over there, and it's actually kind of funny to be over there and like in this suburb that never stops, and it occasionally turns into like fields and woods that go on for a few blocks at a time. And then you see like an MTA bus sign, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I'm still here. Like, like it's a different world over there. Yeah. I'm sending you a link to Jeffrey Perry giving a talk about Thomas Allen's book, The Invention of the White Race, Volume 1, which is goddamn stellar.
Yeah, I got that here. Perfect. Yeah, I'll have to check that out tonight.
That's pretty long. It's like a couple hours. There's a bunch of Jeffrey. Listening to Tom Allen is kind of like slow and nebulous and wanders all around. And listening to Jeffrey Perry is succinct, and it's got bookends, kind of like you're looking at chapters in a book. Mr. Allen was self-educated and really old when he's giving those interviews, and Mr. Perry is he's not that, I guess. Not that either one is good or bad, but I can follow Mr. Perry a bit better in these videos. So take that for what you want. Where we at? Let's see. So you a boxer? You box?
Yeah, I've been boxing for about 6 months now, minus the lockdowns from COVID and whatnot like that. No, I'm not really looking to take it pro. I'm just kind of stepping in to do a couple amateur events, get my feet wet, and go back to being a dad. But just kind of one of those things you want to do before you hit 30. I'm in my early 20s. I'm still 24. So, my dad was good. His dad was good. I figured, might as well. And plus, it's just a beautiful thing to me, more or less than competition or whatever. Like, I consider boxing a martial art. So it really helps me find myself, and I hope to do more martial arts in the future. But this is also just a fun way to keep yourself in shape, keep your confidence up. And in any situation, be able to defend yourself, be able to run for a long time. These are things that I think every person should have in their back pocket, not just boxing. I love so many things about boxing. I love the defense of boxing. I actually love the defense more than I love the offense of boxing. So it's just a beautiful thing in itself. And it pushes you, just like anything you love to do. It's, and my advice to anybody is throw yourself into it. Don't let all the factoring and what everyone else would say why it won't happen, won't work, because anything, you can handle anything realistically. Mm-hmm. And we're gifted, right? Like people would say, oh, I'm normal, or you're normal, or the guy walking up the street is normal. No, we're gifted. We have everything we need. That's a gift. This is a gift, so I really believe that. And I think that we should get the most out of our gift, like use it for what you feel like is the most positive thing to do, and that's just what I think, because people, everybody's gifted. I shouldn't say we're gifted and other people aren't, but I'm saying like I'm watching the Willowbrook documentary last night, and they're following up on how the guy's brother was actually wrongfully put in there because he had cerebral palsy. He had nothing wrong with him mentally.
Yeah.
He was completely intelligent. He was in there treated as like, and it was so sad to hear him talk because, well, obviously the cerebral palsy is making it sad, a very sad scene. And he's also, he's saying like, I am so intelligent and I deserved so much more than that. And like, I was like, dude, that's how every person should think. Even if you got cerebral palsy, this dude knew he's gifted. So, just that every day. I don't think it's a day. I think it's a gift. I do. And don't let it, a lot of people will say, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that's dangerous, or this or that. But I had somebody say to me one time, and his name's Skylar Williams, and he's from Six Nations. He's doing a movement called 1492 Land Back, where he has been camped out on the land for, I have to look, I don't know the exact day, but it's phenomenal work. He's been out there camped out on the reserve fighting for that land, and they've had the police come in and take people out. He had to fight for bail, and he went right back. It's just a great story, it's crazy, and these guys really mean business. And one thing he said is, my people have been here for 10,000 years. We'll be here for another 10,000 years. You better believe it. And I was like, that's the way to go. But off that topic, one time I was sparring with him.
Before you leave that, have you seen Crip Camp?
No, I haven't. Crip
Camp is the opposite of the documentary we're talking about. It's about a summer camp for crippled kids in the 60s that generated a whole group of people who found normality and strength in being so-called handicapped. There's people with polio, cerebral palsy, and mental retardation, and those people went on to be lawmakers and radicals, and people who put laws in for handicapped people, like having ramps, having the little divot in the sidewalk where you can where wheelchairs can go up, like came literally out of this one camp in upstate New York for disabled people.
Wow.
I would bookend the other thing that you're watching with this Crip Camp. It's I didn't want to watch it. It made me uncomfortable. These people were stuttering and couldn't walk, and their bodies were all fucking twisted and crazy. And I'm crying with my wife, like, "Yo, this is so beautiful. I can't believe it's like, thank you."
Yeah.
It was
I had one of those epiphanies with the damn Willowbrook documentary because some of the kids that were in there, they were still alive when they made the documentary. They were fully grown at that point, and they're talking about it. And the one girl was just talking, and it's one of those things, man, that just really puts you in your place when you see people like that. When you see somebody going through that, and even families going through that, it really puts you in your ear, like, hey, I don't got it that bad. You know what I mean? So it's definitely something that I think everybody should try to try to link up.
But you were going to say about the cat who was doing the 1492 project and you were sparring with him.
Yeah. One day we were just doing some light sparring. He's a silver medalist, so I can't really say we were going full out. But he had said to me, there's something special about people who want to come here on a Saturday morning and get punched in the head and punch someone else in the head, And right. Yeah, it's true, because it's funny. So there's always two different type of people in boxing. There's probably more, but I always say this. There's people who love the sport, and there's people who love to fight. And you got to find that balance of loving to fight and loving to play the sport, because if you do one or too much of the other, then you'll lose. So it's a chess game in that sense, and it's good. It's good. It's a beautiful thing.
Man, when I started martial arts I was 40. I did a little bit of karate when I was a kid, and I actually just recently saw that sensei again. I sent my wife and my daughter because they're staying with him, and we all obviously can't train together right now. But I was looking at it like, man, I need to have something that I can do with my body even when I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm in New York City and my daughter is pretty. Like, I a stand-up game and a ground game. You feel me? Like, somebody, and she needs to vibrate like, don't bring it here. you know, and she's a sweet, happy, sensitive person, and she can also like do one of these. And I think once she really knows what it is, and I think she'll that people will feel that. Like, please don't bring it here. You know what I'm saying? I really relate to what you're saying about the wholeness and the athleticism and the mentality that not only that you have to have, but that you create within you in being a person who trains martial arts. Like, man, I was training yesterday with a girl who was finally I have somebody in my school that's as tall as me. This kid is like, I don't know, she's maybe 20 or something like that. She got long ass gorilla arms like me. Like I have Tommy Hearn type body. Like I'm broad, but like I'm tall, and my arms are 4 inches longer than most people. Like I have a really good reach. And this girl was set up like that, like wiry, like she looked like me, like but when I was like 20, like wiry and long. And I don't know. We do train an awful lot of boxing, but yesterday happened to be distance fighting day. So we're doing like leaping backhands and turning reverse punches. And this kid is like, she's new, so she's doing. Let me see. What do I got here? Aha! How well can you see that drum? Pretty well, yeah.
So I can see it. I can see it.
So
there we are. Yeah.
She's starting from this far away.
Okay.
I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, from my shoulder to my arm. Like again, her arm is exactly that long. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what if you start a foot away? Can you still hit me? And so she tried, and she's now she's reaching in, like she's fully extending. And I'm like, so go a foot back. Can you still hit me? And now she she jumps a little to try and hit me. Okay, so don't jump up, jump out. What happens? Right. And now I'm looking at her body. I'm like, what happens if you go back a couple feet? Because now I'm thinking about my body. Like, how far away can I get that I can really still hit somebody effectively from a distance? Yeah. Eventually, we're looking like you can cover 6 to 8 feet, 10 feet. And they always told me, man, Sean, you're long, man. Try harder, go longer, go harder. And it took me looking at this girl yesterday to realize, like, my arm is that long. I can hit most people from like as far away as I am tall, or far as long. But I'm old and slow, so they have to sit there and wait for me to hit that.
But I mean, that's so true about martial arts, and that's so special because no matter how long you've been doing the same martial art, it will always teach you something new. And a great quote that a hip hop artist said was, "I'm not the best, but I'm better than others."
Motherfucker.
And I'm not the best, but I'm better than others. And that's something I always tell people. Like, you might not, like, you could be better than someone who's been there for 4 months and it's your first freaking week. Or you could be there for 5 years before you get one amateur fight. You never really know how everyone's different, but at the same time, the journey is personal. And the one thing is, it's funny, like, remember Bruce Lee when he had the Be Like Water interview and they were talking about how he trained the actors. Yeah. And they said, well, who's a better martial artist? And he had to say, well, you see, this guy's more physical and technical and more athletic and does the movements better. But this one understands the martial arts and what it's doing for him and where he's going with it. So even though this guy is better at the skill level, this guy's actually more of an experienced martial artist in that sense. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because there's so much that ties into it where, starting boxing when you're 23, 24 years old, people would say, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, buddy.
But I'm like, hey, this is like, I don't mind. I mean, this is what I'm kind of throwing myself into for the confidence, because it's like you have these things you're good at. I could have just went and did music again. And the reason I put music on the back burner to do this was to let myself be like water, like Bruce Lee said. What if I was in this bowl? if I was in this bull, would I survive, or would I have fun, or would I even understand these people? So now, going into boxing, it was just like, wow, this is like building my confidence to a whole nother level of, I almost feel like I'm a lifted person, where it's like I know more about myself. Sure, I only worked on this, or maybe I could skip 10 minutes longer this day or whatever, but that focus of whatever I was thinking, even if you're not thinking while you're doing the work, you're just working out, you're thinking, your body is figuring things out. And I really believe that. I do. And I think that any martial art, a lot of people believe boxing isn't a martial art, but you'd be crazy to think it's not.
Who says that? Who says that?
Well, I guess no one would ever really say boxing isn't a martial art, but they would probably say, well, it's not like Taekwondo, like it's like American, like they would kind of have that view of it's the American that it does, So, not saying that boxing is American, but what I'm saying is it's Americanized in that sense. You get the cocky guy, he's all ripped up, he's, you know what I mean? And then you have the other guys who are going in there with an open mind as well. Like, for example, even if you hate the dude, your coaches always make you have to go say, if it's the last round, you have to walk out and give that respect, no matter what. See, a lot of people, they don't understand that. They're hitting the glove like, oh, fuck you, man. I'm going to fuck you up now. But what your coach is doing is showing that you guys are both in the even playing field now. You guys have both made it this far. This is the chess match. This is the beauty of it. That's what I believe in. Of course, boxing to me is a martial art.
Man, like Bruce Lee always said, like train boxing to get better at his hands. And this is a guy that came up doing Wing Chun from Yip Man, and still wanted to get better at boxing, and thought if he'd learned this other language, going back to the language piece, if he learned this other language of throwing his hands, that he could get better. And man, like everybody knows Bruce Lee.
Yeah, and I still got his VHSs sitting right beside me, and I still got a VHS player hooked up to my damn smart TV, and I still watch that shit. So, and I'll watch his moves, and I'll be like, damn, that's a sharp hook. And then you'll see him throw a spinning back elbow, and you're like, damn, that should look like John Jones doing a spinning back elbow. Like, that's the thing about Bruce Lee, is he was a legit martial artist too. When you talk about these guys, like, what was so funny? I think it was a year ago, I had made my girlfriend watch Bloodsport.
Classic.
I'm kidding. And I hadn't seen it since I was like 5 or 6, and I was like, babe, this is a good movie. Jean-Claude Van, like, I had no recollection of how fucking stupid it actually was. And how fake and how stupid it actually looked, like made martial artists kind of look. Not really, because people thought it was dope back in the day, I guess. But when the guy who wrote it, like, what was his name? He was that fake martial artist. Do you know who I'm talking about?
He didn't write it.
No, it was Frank Dukes. Frank Dukes was the name of the character that Jean-Claude played. And Frank Dukes was a fake martial artist that wrote that movie about his fictional life.
I did not know that.
And actually, Frank Dukes made millions of dollars in the U.S. before, like, mixed martial arts and UFC and jiu-jitsu had made its way to the United States. Yeah. He was selling people snake water, dude. He was selling people snake oil. He was selling people these fake moves that he was making up in his head. And if you look at the facts from Bloodsport, he says he had the fastest head kick in the world, and it said 72 miles per hour. Okay.
Nice.
Get this. He also said that he fought 400-something fights in 1 year and didn't lose one, ranging from heavyweight to middleweight to da-da-da. And guess where he did attained all these stats?
Asia.
The Kumite.
Yeah, of course he did.
Dude, at the end scene of Bloodsport, I'll send it to you, a photo of it. It's fucked. The things he says. Fastest knockout with a half-inch punch. Fastest head kick knockout, 72 miles per hour. And it's measured in miles per hour. His kicks.
I'm taking this to my sensei right now. He's gonna take what you just said and take it up to 11, because I know he knows all this shit, man. Like,
he will die, dude. The fact that he's at the Kumite in the 70s or the 60s and they're measuring his kicks by miles per hour, like they got the speedometer watching.
Oh, fuck out of here!
The funniest thing in that movie, my girlfriend fucking was like, oh, "You're never letting me watch a fighting movie again. We're never watching a fighting movie again." Fuck. I thought it was gonna be good. I really did. The funniest thing in that movie is when Jean-Claude does the splits. I think it's Jean-Claude who does it. He does the splits and he throws a punch to the guy's nuts.
Ah, yeah.
He has his hand like he's gonna throw a jab, but he does the splits
and then pop
and goes upward right in the guy's nuts, and the guy just goes rolls his eyes, and he just falls back like he got knocked out with a clean shot to the jaw or something. I'm like, oh my god.
You know, Jean-Claude is a ballet dancer, right? That's how he came in.
Really?
Jean-Claude, yeah.
I can imagine, because if you see his kicks, they reach the target, but it's like a little.
Yeah, no, he's pretty. I mean, I don't doubt that like guys that are trained that way, like I'm gonna stop stuttering. My drum circle is around dancers, and my work for the last decade was with professional modern dancers who came up as ballet artists, and those are some of the strongest, most well-trained, high endurance, extremely high threshold for pain people I've ever met in my life. Like,
ballet is intense. Ballet is an intense thing.
These fucking people, if you can't fuck with pain, you cannot be a ballet dancer. Like
their feet get torn up, right? Like their feet look like someone took a hammer to them and shit.
Yeah, for sure. They call them in that world. They call them hoofs. My wife is one of those kids. She grew up ballet from when she was 3. She got scholarships to all the best conservatories in New York. She went to Ailey. She went to Martha Graham. She went to 92nd Street Y. One of her mentors came through Ailey. She went to called SUNY Purchase. All as a broke ass kid from a broken home who was homeless. You know what I'm saying? Like she just had the set of skills. But the other thing she had was do I say this human has a high tolerance for pain. She's not afraid of shit. She will work until she falls over. She'll take 5 ballet classes back to back for an hour and a half each and go work out. And after she works out, while she's going to bed, she'll be doing crunches, that day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, those people fucking suffer all the time. So going back to blood sport, that's who they got to do those moves, because nobody else would really fuck with them. Frank Dutch.
And like I was gonna say about the Jean-Claude kicks, is they're so amazing, but then you'll just see like the toe will slap like you just made it, and you're like, okay, that makes sense, because they're like, like toe slaps. Like if this was my leg, you know what I mean? It's not like when you see like a real Taekwondo dude like do like a spinning back kick, you're like, holy shit, that shit would have, outed your neck.
Have you ever seen Kuro Obi?
No, how would you spell that?
KURO-OBI.
Okay.
That is hands down my favorite karate movie, not kung fu movie, but karate. For karate, that is absolutely real karate. Like, they start out, they're doing sanshin breathing kata, which is like the thing that they in the real Okinawan schools, this is what they train you on for is a standing what they call iron shirt chikung, breathing kata, and then the fighting in there is amazing. Like, when they talk about katas or karates for defense, they like the even the Japanese word for block, it doesn't mean to what we would say block. It means to accept. And like, you see two dojo brothers that grow up together. This one is aggressive and harsh. This one follows his teacher's teachings and doesn't start fights and is a defense type of guy. And you see in the first fight, this guy goes and kicks everybody's ass. I think he kills the one guy. He punches him in his neck or something like that. And the other guy steps up like, oh, I'm going to avenge my partner. And the other guy steps up and he waits for him. And he waits for him. He takes his attacks. He he's getting out the way, he's parrying, he's, you know what I'm saying? And then when at the right time, after the guy's attacked, then he hits him. And and you know, it's like the one punch kill you knockout versus the defend because somebody is trying to kill you or hurt somebody you love. And yeah, so that's the most authentic karate movie that I'm aware of.
I have to check that out.
You'll probably love it. It's on YouTube, but you got the ones on YouTube. There's like 10 of them, and only one of them has an English dialogue. So there's not. Is it English dialogue or English what do you call it? Subtitles?
Subtitles.
It's all fucked up except for one. So there's that. But yeah,
it's crazy to see high-level karate guys like in mixed martial arts. Like when you see guys like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fighting. Like I don't know if you've seen him fight, but man, when you have high-level karate guys, even Henry Cejudo he's came out in a couple fights, fought karate style. When you see really high-level karate guys, their measurement of distance during combat is so unique. You know, and it's different when if you were to go to the karate joint up on Charing Cross here in Brantford, you know, there's probably some pretty decent guys or whatever. But when you see like a high level guy going to mixed martial arts and they're mixing up all these different techniques that they've learned as well, the karate stance just has such a unique way of moving, and the amount of distance you cover using it is crazy. Because before I started going to the boxing club, I was actually watching karate guys just talk about footwork and the relation between footwork of karate and boxing, and what
do you see there? I'm curious.
Pardon?
What do you?
Well, just simply just pushing off your back foot, moving backwards off your front foot, how you move to the left and right. All these things I learned from this karate dude. I went to the boxing gym and I was like, I already know how to do that. They're like, I thought you don't box. Oh, I don't box. I was watching this karate dude. It's just, it's very, obviously the stances are much different. The way you stand up, you know. I think you're really to the side in karate too, right? You're quite.
I mean, yes and no. Like old school karate is very straight on. There's a school where you're at 45, but absolutely the sport fighting karate is bladed and the attack.
Yeah. And that's very similar in boxing as well. As an old school boxing coach never wants you don't want to be flat. You always want to be off to the side. So, just a few things like that. And obviously different fundamentals in the sport. But at the end of the day, like the movements of the body are natural when you're going straight. You know, when you're doing things like that. I don't know. It's just something. Maybe they're not so much closely related. But he was talking about the footwork and mostly just your movements of going forward, and he was saying like mostly just distance. And that's the one thing is actually when I was learning that, I had bought like striking bags, I was going on runs, but I didn't really have any coaches or real trainers to teach me like anything specific. I was kind of just learning on my own, whatnot. And I was able to kick. Like I've always had a really solid like right roundhouse kick. I could kick really high, and I was always kicking, mixing up kicks with my punches, whatever, doing it in the pool, learning how to throw different kicks, teaching myself the movements and watching videos, whatever. Then when I started boxing, I remember one day I went to kick one day. I was like, yo, my stance, it's improved, but at the same time, if I had to try to kick somebody, I'd be a little bit off put. So it's really interesting to see how when you mix martial arts together, how effective they become. And that's why Bruce Lee's such a legend in the world, because he was like the first guy to say that it's formless to be formless. Why do you have to use Taekwondo form? Why do you have to? No, you could go ahead and step into the other realm and learn more, learn different angles and see things from a different point of view. Because even in its own sport, two boxing clubs are completely different from one another. Two karate clubs are different from one another. Our dojos, Taekwondo, anything, jiu-jitsu even in jiu-jitsu, when things are so technical, there's still different ways of training them and different ways of people get through to you. And the psychological thing, I believe that so much, that your coach's psyche plays off on you so much. I really believe that.
It's great to have multiple coaches, man. It's like to get all that different information is really important, man. Like, not that you shouldn't have a master and learn from your master and become excellent in your master's technique, but once you have a basis, man, it's important to branch out. It's like it's and before I forget, I gotta say this man's name, Raymond Daniels. That's my favorite MMA karate artist. Oh man, Raymond Daniels is the dude that did that spinning punch and got close to the dude, and when he got up to him, then he landed and knocked him out. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Great, but he's also really famous for he's got this back kick that he does, but it's like jumping. Like, you know how people do a double jump front kick? They're like, the knee comes up, and then the other kick comes up. I don't want to do it here. You know, so like the knee comes up, and then they kick the thing. Does that make sense? So kind of like what the Karate Kid did when he did this. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's called the switch kick, jumping switch kick.
That's what. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying, though. So, but he does that from the back. I gotta. So Ray Daniels is a motherfucker, man. His escape, and that's classic point karate stuff. If somebody comes at you with a reverse punch or a side kick, that's real common. He'll the attack, the defense is step back and reverse punch or step back and side kick, and his defense is to step back, and what you would normally be side kicking with would be to jump up with the back kick with the leg you'd be kicking with. That's the leg that pushes you up, and then while you're getting away and the person's still coming at you, the other leg comes out.
You rotate. Wow, that's crazy.
Beautiful, man. It's this, but going backwards with his fucking feet. It's, oh my god, this dude Ray Daniels is fucking brilliant.
I just got him up here, so he's a Bellator fighter. That's probably why I'm not too familiar. Yeah. I'm kind of a cheesy MMA fan in that way. I only watch UFC because I like to watch boxing a little more. But it's funny because I always watch UFC and I miss boxing a little bit more. My girlfriend said, "What do you like to watch more?" I say boxing. She's like, "I find boxing a little bit more boring." And she hates watching fights. Like, she thinks it's like two greased up, oily guys coming in to fight for the title. But there's more to, like I always say, there's more to it, babe. There's more, But you know what? Women don't. Not women. It's not women. Certain people find art in different things. They find art in different things. Like, people will see fighting and say, "There's no art in that. This dude's freaking skull just got cracked in that," And like me and you will be like, "Oh no, there's tons of art in that." It doesn't. Not everyone's the same, and that's something that you always got to remind yourself. I even need to remind myself that sometimes, because I'll be sitting there like, "You really don't want to watch McGregor fight tonight?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "You don't want to see this is this time?"
Look at me, my wife, and my daughter all train karate together, but I cannot get those two to watch even a boxing match. They're like, "Why do I want to watch somebody get beat up?"
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? What's so brutal? Like, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just not their thing. Like, I will watch a chick flick movie. I will watch a rom-com. But I do that because, that makes her happy. She wants to sit with me and watch a movie. Fuck it, I'll watch it. But, like, I don't go seeking out rom-coms. I don't go seeking out the housewives of wherever the fuck. I'm not trying to watch the Kardashians. But, if she'll sit there and watch, she'll never watch The Walking Dead with me. But if she would, you know what I'm saying, I would trade that to go watch this. By the way, since we're talking about this is my favorite thing in the world. Oh, shit. Let's see. Turn on the light. Can you see this?
Yeah. That's you in a gi. Oh, that's when you had the beard.
Yeah, but
there you go. That was clean picture right there.
Hold on.
There you are, a raw stud out. Wow.
That's the day we got our white belts. There's me, my daughter. Oh shit! I'm going the wrong way. There we go. And my wife. 5 years ago when we all came in.
Wow, that's beautiful, brother. Yeah. That is beautiful.
You can't quite see how big it is, man. I had it blown up as big as they would make it at Costco. That shit happens every time that's literally my favorite picture in the world. Every time I see that, I think of us like one day we'll all have black belts. And I literally thought of that when my daughter was in the womb. I'm like, man, if she could just protect herself, because I came to the conclusion that, like, I won't always be able to be there, man. It's just not possible. And also, I don't want to go to jail for no stupid fucking asshole. You know what I'm saying? Like, if anything ever happens, man, who knows what the fuck would happen to me? I have a temper. And
that I agree with. And when you see, I'm the type of guy, when things blow up, when things blow up, I'll fucking blow up too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like the type of dude who'd be perfect in the military, because once I'm in that situation of like spasticness, I'm just gonna fucking be the spasticness. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just kind of how I am. And I don't know. Sometimes I got, that's something I do have to work on too, as well, is with my like it is a mental health thing, but I also think it's like a habit, you know, of how you deal with things. When you let's say times are depressing, if you fall into, now you're depressed because you're in a depressed time, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're kind of like a not so much product of your environment, but you're like a chameleon, you know, where you are is what you blend type thing. That's sometimes like I'm good at digging myself out of situations too, and realizing how I should feel in situations. But sometimes when things get down, I get down too. Or if things are super happy, I'm the super happy guy. Like, you know, I kind of adapt to that type thing. So I always said, like, I'd be perfect. I'd be a terrible therapist, but I'd be good to talk to. I'd probably be a good therapist, but, you know, I'd probably sometimes be like, yeah, man. Yeah, me too, bro. Crack the beer, whatever.
Have you ever done therapy, like talk therapy?
No.
Have you ever considered it? Is it something you'd be interested in?
Maybe, you know, maybe in the future, yeah. You know, especially now that I started, like, this is only my second podcast, and I mean, we're almost at 2 and 15, and it feels, and dude, it feels natural. It feels good,
yeah,
like,
right?
Yeah.
We could go on any subject. It seems like
yeah. And I knew you'd be a perfect, because this is like the official, like this, I call this episode 2, but this is like the official official first episode. You know, I'll have to chop it up and I'm not going to do too much edits, because I'd like to keep it how it is and just let people be a part of the conversation. But yeah, and that, like, I don't know why I just knew this would be a good idea, because you sit around, you sometimes you want to talk all the time, and you're like, it's not that no one wants to talk to you. You just like, I got all this shit to talk about. I don't even have really time to talk to this. Like, you know, I don't know. So the podcast is a beautiful thing, because also, like, think of this. We're friends on Facebook. We've probably been friends on Facebook for 5-6 years. We almost made some music back in the day, but we never really knew who each other were. We just knew of each other.
Yeah, I never talked. Yeah, I just know, like, you're Alan's kid. I saw baby pictures of you before. Yeah. You know, I'm like, oh, Liam, let me friend him up on Facebook, see if that works. And here we are, you know, finally chatting it up, cutting it up, and find out, like, we have a lot of the same interests in that kind of, you know. I still need to send you some beats, actually. I just made something new yesterday. Actually.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of artists too. Like, if you get time and check out the pilot for this, my friend Tyler, he's a great artist as well. He was my first guest, actually, just because I knew him pretty well, and I thought he would be a good pilot. And then obviously that led to this, which is I think this is going to be a really good episode. So I'm really excited about that. And that's the thing I always tell my guests. I'm like, this isn't the only time you'll be on, because you know, I'm not going to run a 5-hour episode, but I'll run 2.5 hours or whatever we need to do. So, you know.
Yeah, it's mad long. I'm actually holding water right now, man. I just finished a bottle of sake too. It's my joy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't love sake, but I do enjoy sake from time to time. Right. Yeah, I rarely drink, actually, but like, I'm like, okay, I need to be talking. I might get a little closed lip. Let me, like, have the natural libation to open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I like to tend with a little bit of weed, just a nice little bong rip before I get on the podcast. But
I almost hit it, man. But like when I do, I'm gonna clam up and get internal, and I would not be. I'd be like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I found myself doing that my first podcast, so I made sure to like. I noticed, like, someone would like my first guest. He says, "Oh, I've only known my dad for 5 years." And I've known him for longer than 5 years. And I'm watching it back. I'm like, I didn't even fucking elaborate on that. Like, that was the hottest fucking topic of the subject. And I went, like, and it's not that I wasn't processing it. You know, it's your first time doing it too. But that's the one thing about smoking. You kind of like let people go and you just kind of soak. And when you're hosting a podcast, you don't really want to do that. You know, someone drops some knowledge, the 5-year dad relationship, you want to be like, oh shit, really? Like, I didn't know that. Tell me what that did. But
more and listen, right? Yeah, that's one of those things, man. If I'm hot, for me, smoking weed is like I will forget what I'm saying mid-sentence and I won't get it back. I would have been so fucking. I'm probably boring for the last 2 hours and 14 minutes, but like. If it was weed, it'd have been like, yo, after 15 minutes, be like, yeah, this is real nice talking to you, brother Sean. Like, we can't, yeah, this thing. Thank you very much. That's much. Like,
yeah,
man,
well, that's dope. That's dope, and I think we're basically gonna wrap it up in about a minute or two. I don't know if there's anything we really missed so far, but it was a great episode and. Great stories, bro, and it's such an exciting life. I know a lot of people around my area and here that tune into the podcast so far, they're gonna be like, "Wow, this dude's seen a lot of life." Like they're gonna be like, "I gotta do something now," because a lot of people don't, especially here. No, seriously, I'm serious. A lot of people are in their same job their whole life. They don't like a lot of the even places you mentioned. They'll never see in their life. So it's good to. That's another reason why I brought you on, is because I knew you're an experienced person in the world of life. Not only that you have your degrees and that you're a martial artist in these things, but also that you're an intellectual and that you have these experiences in life that a lot of people don't get the chance to experience. So that's a big reason why I thought you'd be a great guest, and you made out. And next week, I haven't confirmed that next week he'll be on, but I have an author also from New York, actually from Buffalo. So. He's a really smart kid as well, and he's got a book called Crying Soul.
Who's that?
It's a short story, and it's about basically it's a reverse in time. It's a time lapse. It's actually really interesting, and it's about the George Floyd murder, but it's not about it is, but it's a reverse in time. And I don't want to discredit his book by me trying to make it sound like what it's not, but. It takes a step back in time into I can't remember the location, but I believe it's in the southern United States, and just talking about the resemblance. How much has it really changed when they had that same thing? And he does just where I even said to him, I said, to write that book, man, you had to put yourself into such a dark place. And he's a dark-skinned dude, like he's African, and he like. Just the amount of emotion you can feel in that book is just it's eye-opening, it really is, and how much we've made progress, but we have so far to go still, and that's what it is.
Yes, I see that every day over here, man. It's amazing if I had a whole other day to share stories about what I see at school and like what I see on my way to school and on the way back, it's just like it's a never-ending battle. It's something I dedicated myself to, man. And that's part of the way the reason why I got into the drum. Honestly, to make a difference and to acknowledge, to honor my grandmother and to be with the community rather than something that's a part of the problem. Something
exactly.
What I'm saying? I want to be feeding into it. If I could make a suggestion, I would love to see a 2-hour talk with your grandfather. I love that man, and I love to sit with him, man. His mind is just like, bro, like.
Yeah. You ever played chess with him? Have you ever played a game of chess against him?
And I'll say this. I've never beaten your Uncle Carl. This motherfucker kicked my ass 100% of the time. I can only imagine what Al Sr. is like. I can only.
He's like a chess phenomenon, man. Like I don't know. I remember playing chess, and of course I never beat him as a kid. I couldn't even really play chess as well. But he's got that really patient way of thinking, and chess where he can see things. Like, I don't know. It just, he could have been like an architect the way he can see things out. Like, he could look down the line and, when? Like, it's just amazing. But, so what do you think was the craziest thing you did ever see walking to work or walking to school in the Bronx? And maybe not the craziest, because that might be hard to just drop. But, like, what's one thing that comes to the top of your mind that if you're walking somewhere in Midland, Canada, where it's normal day, you don't really see anything. Maybe the worst thing you see is a fist fight. What would you, what comes to the top of your mind when you think of those days, one of those days when you were walking?
I have a bunch of them, man. I mean, the day I was walking to work and there was a boy that just got hit by a car, bleeding on his head in the street. The day I was going to Jesus Christ, I was going downtown. I saw one of my students get tackled. A 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid get tackled by police at the fucking train station. I'm still.
What did they think he was like line jumping or jumping the things? The
stupid ass brother stole a fucking iPhone and he said he did it, and he ran. It was. I spent the fucking night there at the police station making sure he got out of there alive, and made sure they called his grandmother. So I stayed there for fucking hours. Jesus, man. I mean, yeah, it's that's just in the Bronx. In Spanish Harlem, I remember a time. Jesus, man. There used to be a mob.
Yeah.
It was across from my building, like about 30 kids or something like this. And one of those kids was my student from a high school I taught at. And I still remember, this is my teacher. Nobody fucks with him. Nobody touches him. And so I could pretty much walk on my block, man. But like one day, man, this one kid, he was really fucking drunk, man, and he was kind of like higher up in the hierarchy of that organization. And if I'm not mistaken, he's like number 2, number 3 on the block level, like not in the the upper echelon. Anyway, this dude sees me standing outside. And I'm just walking home from dance class. I've been playing my drum. I got my djembe on my back. He's walking. This fucking guy. This is actually a really embarrassing fucking story. But this fucking guy tells me, "Hey, White Rasta, yo, get in the fucking house. Don't be out here on my block." And I was like, so now I'm posting like, "Oh, you gonna tell me where to fucking go? Fuck you, dude." And so this fucking dude comes over with a belt, like I'm a grown-ass man, pulls his belt off and wants to hit me with it, man, and like got a couple off, actually. Mm-hmm. And so, I was always trained, like I said, my teacher said, only fight if they're going to kill you or hurt somebody you love. Otherwise, you got options. You can run away, you can call somebody, you can cover up, whatever it is. And so I'm covering. And right about the time I get, like, really pissed off, this kid's cousin shows up. Like, and this is literally the only, I've been in New York City 18 years. Only fight I got in. Like, everybody always respected me. His cousin runs up. Yo, don't do it, bro, because he saw it. He saw it was coming. Don't, if you start it, it'll never end. It'll never end. And I'm just like, prepare. I'm like, do I eat this shit sandwich? I have a daughter on the way. Like, literally a daughter is on the way. I'm like, I have to live. I'm like, so now I'm like, do I eat the shit sandwich? I'm like, fuck, I gotta live here. Fuck. And the next thing, so long story short, I chose this fucking higher ground. Like I didn't fight this kid back. So now cut forward. I met the woman who's gonna become my second wife, and she wants me to go on a date to Central Park. So we go walking. Little do I know, her friend is Tlingit. You know Tlingit people from Yukon, that area.
Okay. So
all the way northern Canada, like Pacific people, and she's got a friend. She's my wife is Cherokee and Black Cuban Jew, and she got a native friend, and she got 2 little babies, and they live in a 5-floor walk up, and she wants to be she wants to take her kid out on our date. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, let's take out the baby on the date in the carriage. Okay, cool, let's do that. And so we're walking. It's a nice time. We're walking back up the hill, going back to drop the baby off. I got the baby on my arm now because she's asleep. I'm walking. My girl, who I don't know is going to be my wife, is on my left. Baby on my shoulder. We get up to the top of the hill. We're walking across the top. Who's fucking standing there but this guy? And I'm like,
oh my God.
Girl, right? And I see her a couple times, man. the general of the block. He's this dude that's got a fucking scar on his face like this. I just call him General. I always thought Scarface in my head, but I was like, let me not be disrespectful. Different part of the story. I see that kid. I'm like, fuck, there's this guy, man. So I'm just walking like they don't have this man. To my total fucking surprise, walks out in my path. Is like, man, I really want to apologize to you for how I behaved that day. I apologize. That was not me. I was under the influence of alcohol, and this has gone too far without me speaking and telling, like, and really, asking for your forgiveness. That was unacceptable, and I was just like, I still tell that child who I still know, her name's Maina. She's an actress now. Her dad is kind of a famous Taino dude. That she saved my life that day. Because had he not seen us appearing like a little family, he might not have, if it was just, well, first of all, I wouldn't have been coming back from fucking Central Park that day. But, as it worked out, if it was just me, it might have been a thing. You know what I'm saying? And he might have wanted to settle it. And this was a big motherfucker, man. He was a known dude. And I came through and he saw something about the energy of the little family coming through, man. And he just felt like he recognized the what he'd done and how powerless it was. And I got the justification of what my sensei had told me in fucking, 1985 or some shit, that I'm not allowed to fight unless somebody is trying to kill me or hurt somebody I love. I was just like, holy shit, this man was right. The whole time I've been like, I don't really know, man. That sounds a little fucking dangerous. Like, aren't I supposed to like pull out a weapon and like, like I'm not supposed to take it? Bro, it's real, man. Like, it's real that like that you should be able to talk to a man and find out what's going wrong with him. You should be able to. A real martial artist like my wife isn't in a place where you would need to be in a fight. If you're in a situation where you're about to fight, a real martial artist should be able to reach inside a person, find out what's wrong with them, and get them to talk about it, and have verbal karate, verbal martial arts, of peace before this. I mean, should be a last defense. I really came to that, man, and it was very that it remains one of the most powerful moments of my life, man. Because that was so unfucking dignified, man. I've never, like, my parents never even hit me with a belt, man. This fucking man hit me with a belt. All I saw was fucking red, man. I just wanted to just like I was ready to go to jail. I was ready to lose my fucking life, and something just told me, man, like I got like I can't do this here, and for it to come full circle, I'll never forget that, man. It was something beautiful. And like I said, it comes from this moment of like what should have been shame, like a grown man running from a fight where like, somebody like, it did something that humiliating. And it turned into this other thing of like where we both had this deep healing. Anyway, that's the story.
That's an amazing story, bro. That's